Mic. Camera. Action.
You sure about this?
Not really.
If I get eaten, you're gonna feel really bad.
This tracker rifle only has a 100-foot range.
100 feet?
Get really close before you shoot.
Great.
If you want me to go instead, I will.
I got this, Meg.
Okay, good, because I was lying. Be safe.
Yeah, thanks, pal. I hope you're right about this.
Me too.
I'm an idiot. And proceeding to the enormous killer shark.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue, from past debut through to present day, in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from the Focus Filmography, and consider how it ranks amidst their career, and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits, or theatrical tics. For episode 39, I'm joined by the Meg-nificent duo of Mike and Meg-an to discuss the 39th big screen appearance of the Stath in his most successful leading man movie to date, surprisingly, The Meg. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. So thank you both for joining me, surprisingly, for the first time together as a duo since Collateral, which is way
the
back
least Statham-y film that in this whole watch of yours, the whole project, the least Statham-y film. And then obviously Meg-an was ill because of Romeo and Juliet.
There's like some miscommunication as to what was actually going on, because one second it was a migraine, one second it was ill. I definitely wasn't feeling very well, and I was sad because I really enjoyed Romeo and Juliet.
I have the whole intro written for you both about the idea of having my own very own Romeo and Juliet on for the pod, and no, but I mean, what can you do when you're not well? And we all do this because we enjoy doing it, and if you can't because you can't, then there's no pressure. We all have had to rearrange, haven't we, at times, and so many things come up that means you can't give up an hour or two of your precious free time for free.
Yeah, exactly. And here we are with The Meg.
But I will say though, you were actually really excited with Romeo and Juliet. Like you.
Oh, like yeah, legitimately. I'd never seen
it
before, and I was genuinely laughing out loud.
Yeah, and you were
I thought it was really funny.
I said on the pod, I was like, Meg-an was getting all the Shakespeare references and all these jokes, and I barely know anything about Shakespeare and Shakespearean works, so I was like, I know very little. Meg's like, oh, that reference, and I'm like, I feel stupid. So you were cracking up at that, and you're really excited to talk about it, and then obviously you were ill and then you couldn't, but we've gone through the journey, because it's been the least Statham film in his back catalogue, then the only Statham film where he is animated so far, and then this film I'd say
the most Statham film.
It's definitely up there with the most Statham film. It's either this or Spy, but I think with what Blake said in the
pretty
Spy,
Statham in Spy.
but that's like one thing that Blake said that was really insightful, I found, was when he said, okay, so there's the Jason Statham as the actor, and then there's the Stath as the kind of persona. But in The Spy, he was basically Jason Statham playing the persona of the Stath, but turning it up to like the nth degree. And I was like, that's a really great way. It's him playing on every trope he's ever kind of had. And as you guys said in the podcast, like, the dialogue in that, like, because Meg-an had obviously seen it before me, but after hearing when you were getting ready for The Spy, in the prior months and stuff, I did say to Meg-an, I was like, I really want to watch Spy. And because I've seen it, it's great. I love this Melissa McCarthy in it.
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy would be in my girl gang.
Yeah, Yeah,
Megan's
I can
got
understand that.
several women that Megan would be like, yeah, I'd have a gang.
Emma Stone would be in my girl gang as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
The girl gang is always growing.
It is.
Megan's.
It's forever growing.
Yes, and then the Meg, and well, we saw. Were you going to ask us when did we first see the film? Because I feel like I'm inadvertently railroading your podcast.
Not at all. You know that this is just totally free and open. There's no real, strict structure to this. And actually, as you know, as I said to you before, I just want to hear from you, really. So I know there's a backstory to this, and you were so keen on getting this when I first put the list out for the obvious pun opportunities, but also because there is a story that you two have, isn't there?
Yeah, so Megan and I obviously, I say obviously, I keep saying obviously all the time. And
As if everyone knows.
Yeah, as if everyone knows all these things about us. If they did, I wouldn't be saying it.
We met, and then I was like, bye, I'm going to America for a month.
It was like 2 weeks after we met, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was a week and a half, 2 weeks after we met, I went over to America, and that was at the time that the Meg had come out. So I remember being in New York and there being those massive things in Times Square that have like the adverts for the movies and
like electronic billboards.
Yeah, basically. The huge ones. And I have like a couple of pictures of me with like the Meg in the background, and I'm like, it's me. But then I came back, and this was the first film that Mike and I went to see at the cinema together.
Yeah, all those years ago. So yeah, this year we're getting married
solely because it's called the Meg.
Yeah, and I was like, from what I knew about Megan at that time, we spoke every day when she was in America. She traveled by herself, and met up with friends and did stuff like that. But we were speaking every single day, often on the phone for up to an hour at a time, if not sometimes more. And so
I was using that Starbucks free Wi-Fi.
You were, yeah. And I got to get to know what kind of stuff Megan liked and the kind of films she doesn't like. And so when she said the Meg, I was, that's I didn't really think that, as much as I like Megan and how cool she seems, I didn't think this kind of film would be what she would necessarily go for. But cool, maybe she's into these kind of films. And that's where I'll leave that there, because we can I don't know if you want to say.
Like Jason Statham.
Yeah. I mean, because by that point you'd have seen Spy.
I'd seen Spy. He's in Snatch, isn't he?
Yeah.
I've seen Snatch and Lock, Stock, and
that's the first two roles.
I'd seen those two films. I've seen a few of them.
Yeah. I think you had seen more Statham films than I had, I think, when you'd seen Spy and stuff. But I think now it's kind of evened out a bit. Yeah.
Well, you especially like him in this movie. That shower scene. We'll get there, but that shower scene. There's a couple of moments in this movie I think that almost meta, like the characters in the movie are reacting in the way that we as an audience are reacting, and that's one of them. When the Li Bingbing, I think that's how you say her name. Apologies to anyone who's offended by my pronunciations. When she sees him when he's coming out of the shower, and she goes and peeks back through the window. We're all thinking the same thing.
Yeah, as when he's wearing that towel, I'm like, I want to look at his face, but I cannot.
It's so low. I
can't.
The towel is so low.
It's like Chris Hemsworth in Bad Times at El Royale.
That's uncomfortable.
Where it's so low. It's like I genuinely think I can almost see.
That was very low.
That's interesting. Tony and I have been doing Justified recently for Season's Greetings, and Timothy Olyphant, well, is one of the most charismatic, handsome men that's ever lived, in my opinion. Okay. And there's much like Chris Hemsworth, there's a moment in I think it's in season 1, he gets caught having just been having a good time with a young lady he shouldn't, and he comes out the door, and the angle of the camera to where his pants are, underwear for us, pants for not American pants, the underneath version of that. Yeah, there's some serious. Is it? I believe a term that can be used is cum gutters, right?
That's one. Or dick root. The dick root is like a V. I call it like the V more so. Like, well, not the V because but the arrows, not the V because it's the opposite.
The vagina.
Yeah, it's like the arrow sort of shape. But I normally use my hand movements, which on a podcast means nothing. But yeah, people know.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Because I do talk about it. Cum gutter. That is not a phrase that I'm not a fan of.
Not the nicest. Neither of those words make anything sound very nice. And you put them together, and it's like, ooh.
It sounds like something that Jay would say on The In-Betweeners.
Oh yeah. She's a right cum gutter. Ugh, grim. Absolutely vile.
And I think let's not bother reviewing the film. Let's just
it's
not going to get any better than that.
But yeah, that shower scene's pretty intense with the Stath. But yeah, this is a cool film.
I liked it.
Yeah.
So well, let's talk about it. Let's start there then. So have you seen it many more times since that first viewing?
No, we watched it at the cinema and then we watched it for this podcast. I haven't seen
Watched
it in
it
between.
within weeks of meeting, and then watched it within only a couple months of getting married. So it's quite a nice two big milestones.
Yeah, and 6 years apart. So you know that's and it. I mean, Megan, you've gone there straight away, which is great. Like it's held up for you. It's still enjoyable. It's still fun. It's still hitting the beats you want it to.
Oh yeah, I was looking forward to watching this film. I really enjoyed it. I'm really bad at remembering stuff in general. So I find it difficult sometimes to remember films. And there were certain elements of this film that I didn't remember, but if I can remember something, then it probably means that I really enjoyed it the first time round. And I remembered quite a lot about this, but obviously the plot is, you know,
the plot's not the strongest.
It's not the strongest. It's not that complicated, so it's not that difficult to remember, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not a David Fincher, film, or even a Christopher Nolan film. You know, it's not like watching Interstellar. It's quite different to that kind of experience. We haven't watched it. I mean, we also, as of recording this, we haven't watched the Meg 2. So, you know, when you do Meg 2 for Back to the Filmography, then hopefully you have us back on.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're down on the list.
And that'll be our first watch. You know, unless we enjoy it so much, we want to watch it twice. But I think we'll probably leave it almost the last minute and watch it like 2 days beforehand. That's the fun thing to do. But yeah, with this one, I've if I was with anyone who hung out with us and said, "Hey, have you seen that Meg film? I'd be up for watching it tonight." I'd be like, "Yeah, more than happy to chuck it on." But it's not the kind of film that you kind of go, "Oh, I really fancy watching that film." You know, I think with a film like Spy, you could be like, you know what, I'm really in the mood for that film, for that Statham, for that Melissa McCarthy, you know, that Rose Byrne, all that kind of stuff. And
I forget Rose Byrne's in that as well.
And there are certain films I had as well until I listened to their podcast. I was like, oh yeah,
I like that.
But
she's in the girl group.
Yep, there we go.
She is in the girl group.
She would be. But yeah, I think that it's a great movie, but I haven't wanted to rewatch it. Like, have you seen this film many times? Did you see it at the cinema, or did you have to watch it on home release?
No, I don't think I did. I saw it once it was out on home release or on streaming, and then I watched it again last August in preparation for Meg 2.
Okay.
So I think this would have been my third watch. So not massively watched. I think I'm in the same position as you. It's easy viewing. It's enjoyable. When we were talking beforehand about it, I was like, I actually don't really need to watch this again in prep for tonight. But because it's easy to watch and it's enjoyable, I will. So it's interesting you said 2 days. That's normally my sweet spot. If I can get the penultimate day before the podcast, that's not right, is it? The day before the penultimate day.
Yeah.
Is there a word for
2 days before?
Yeah. That's the sweet spot. So it's like nice and fresh in my memory. I think I'm a bit like you, Megan. If I don't, there's been occasions when Tony I've recorded and it's been delayed, and I'm like, I can't really remember what I read or what I watched, because I've read and watched so much since that. But yeah, last night, so it's only one night away from me, because it was really just a throw it on just to refresh myself and remind myself rather than need to watch it.
Yeah, it's one of those films where I thought, oh, if we didn't watch it, then I'd still be able to talk about it quite a lot. There's certain details obviously that reminded me, but I was like, I could have quite easily spoken about this film for a decent-ish amount of time had not rewatched it. I'm very glad I did rewatch it.
Yeah, I think I would have forgotten a lot of the people that got killed,
basically. Yeah.
Also, are we allowed to spoil?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
okay.
completely. Yeah.
Okay. I think I knew that the one that died, the first person that died, is it Toshi? Is that his name?
Yeah. The guy from Heroes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew that he died. I remembered him dying, and then I had a feeling that the other guy died, but I couldn't actually remember.
Is it Wall? They call him
the Wall. Yeah. There's lots of bits that I kind of. It's mainly the people that actually died. I can't remember.
I think after the war, I forget, because when Hela dies, I was like,
I mean, to be fair, I completely forgot that.
Ruby Rose.
No, Dwight, Rainn Wilson. I completely forgot that Rainn Wilson was in the film.
Oh, same. Yeah,
he appeared on screen, and I was like, is that Dwight?
False.
What I think is interesting about him is he in the same film? He's very large in this, isn't he? He's like that over the top, and I guess he's meant to be this kind of new money. This kind of, I guess he's made it in the realm of TV or media, or that they never really say, but that's the sense I get from him. I won't spoil Meg 2 now knowing that you haven't seen it, but he sort of feels like he should be a Meg 2 really. But this knows what it is, and it kind of goes for it, but does at times feel like it doesn't quite. I don't know, it hits a wall and it stops, and it's like doesn't get too gory, doesn't get too silly, doesn't get too over the top. It's all kind of pretty safe. Whereas Meg 2 is like, fuck it. They liked that. Now, will they like this?
I'm more excited for that stuff then.
Yeah, and you know, we'll be interested to see what you think of that in comparison. And I think he's the closest thing in this to what Meg 2 does for everybody, is that he goes for it. He doesn't really care.
Yeah, I just find it nuts though, because like if I were him, there's no way that I would go anywhere near the water. Like even in a helicopter, I would be like, get me out of here. Don't ever make me return to this place. I'm now going to live on a landlocked in a landlocked country.
Let's go.
So that I'm nowhere near water. Nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
No, I agree. It's kind of, it's maybe, isn't it, the hubris, isn't it? He's like, he's trying not to get the governments involved and stuff because he messed up. He's responsible. So he's basically, it's an ego thing. He's like,
well, yeah, no, I understand
He's also so, you know, I think the impression is meant to be people like that. They think that because they have near on unlimited resources, they can just do anything with no consequence because they can always use money or power to get themselves out of a situation. And it's like, I can do it. I can do, you know, I'll hire loads of mercenaries or whatever and take out the giant shark. We don't have to get the governments involved. I'm smarter than them. I've got more money. And then he just gets eaten. And you're like, off you go. You know, it's only the Stath who can get rid of, not you, Rainn Wilson. I'm sorry. You know.
Yeah.
The Stath.
Jason Statham.
We all knew when it
had to be. But the death is quite, I mean, I know we're kind of jumping around a bit, but that death when he stabs right in the eye, he was like, I forgot about that bit. Because when Statham kills, Jonas kills the shark at the end, and it rides in the end, he stabs it through the eye with a harpoon, doesn't he? Yeah. It's like,
it's a cool, badass moment, isn't it? Yeah, because he's already dug the knife into the side of the head, hasn't he? And then it jumps out the water. Yeah. I think he's perfectly cast here.
Oh, yeah.
This is it's that guy, and he's been through a safe space recently, and that was a word we used in a lot of my podcasts, where like he was in perhaps films where the plots were a little bit different, or the characters were a little bit different, but what he was doing wasn't really pushing the boundaries. And then the Fast and Furious came along, and now really it's like, as Blake was saying, like that persona is there. He is the Stath, and this is the Stath movie. There's no Jason Statham here. It's all persona, isn't it?
He's like oozing charisma, just every scene. And I think like Spy and this film go together so well, because it's kind of like, if you don't know Statham, I think for it should be like one of these films as well as his first two. Like that's kind of the films that I'd watched of Statham's anyway. But it's like quite a good rainbow of like what his acting talents can be. I know you guys are saying about Wildcard, he actually shows off a bit of acting in that regard that he doesn't necessarily show. And I've not seen that film, and I've not seen the only side of Statham I think I haven't seen is like the overtly like really emotional side. There's a little bit of it in here, surprisingly. Actually, there's a surprising amount of actual emotions you see him portray. But have you seen him in many films where he's like he needs to cry or really like depressed? Because I know you said in Wildcard there's the gambling side and the craziness in his eyes, but I didn't know if he's ever done any emotional stuff. Like
in Safe, funnily enough, he loses his. I mean, I'm going to get them confused now, and in Safe, I'm pretty sure that's when he loses his pregnant wife. And ends up like on the street. But there's also Hummingbird, where he's ex-military and he's on the street. So those ones where he's playing these characters who have got a big loss or are struggling to readjust to one. And I think he does that quite well, because he does internal well. You can actually, I think he can radiate. He's charismatic, as you said, but I think he can radiate an internal quality through his performance pretty decently. I don't think he's a wordsmith. I don't think he's particularly good at delivering reams and reams of dialogue in a Shakespearean way. To go back to
I would love that. Wouldn't you love to see him in like something like Clueless, which is like a rom-commy kind of film, but it's like it takes things from Shakespeare or maybe Jane Austen or something like that. Like, could you imagine him doing like Sense and Sensibility or something, and he's like everyone around is dead serious and they're all perfectly cast, and it's just him as this one character that he's still performing and he's still doing, but he's doing it in his voice like that the whole time, and he's completely serious and no one is joking. Because I just think if you could get him doing that in the right film, it would work so well. Because it's all in this film, it's almost a bit like that. It's not because the film is formulated around it, but it's almost like he's so much more cartoonish in some ways than everyone else. Because everyone else is like quite apart from Rainn Wilson, Lord.
Wayne Wilson, I like that.
That's one of Statham's alter egos.
Yeah.
But I think that aside from him, a lot of the supporting cast who are on the boat rig thing, they're all generally quite, they're meant to be scientists, they're meant to be, stereotypical intellectuals. So they're all quite normalish seeming people. Whereas you get the Stath coming in doing that, and it's like he cuts through every scene, and I love that. And I want more films where he does that. He doesn't inspire a lot, but every character inspires quite goofy. But like every time he's on screen, because he's so bombastic, he just he breaks everything around him in the best way. And I just want to see more stuff where it's everyone's kind of normal, and he's at 150%. I just think it's so funny.
It's funny because that's one of those moments I was thinking of when I was saying about how the characters talk like the audience. It's the first time Rainn Wilson's character, I can't remember what he's called now, but it's something really like Morris, I think. Morris.
I just
really
wrote
I think it might be Morris.
I wrote the word
actually.
billionaire on my notes.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Let's call him billionaire from now on. When he first meets him, he's like, "Oh yeah, he looks heroic, doesn't he?" He's just like, "Oh, thank you for verbalizing what we're all thinking." The strut he's got, the way he's just immediately walking and taking charge, just ignoring the billionaire who people are normally pandering to. Yeah, that's one of those first moments, I think, and it's the Stath's here now. Absolutely, it's all going to be okay.
To be fair, when he's first introduced, well, I suppose because there's the first introduction, which is obviously
Well, there's the like
scene
flashbacky thing, isn't
yeah,
there?
where everyone where you see him do that thing where he clearly saves everyone, and we know it, and the Stath knows it. But obviously, you find out that everyone's on the ship, and then there's no windows, so no one actually saw it. They just heard a boom.
That doctor is a bit of a dick, isn't he?
Hella, yeah.
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah,
he
saves like half a dozen
himself.
people, doesn't he? But then he seals the hatch, so
yes,
the rest of the people left in the sub will die, isn't it?
And then within like 5 seconds of him doing that.
But my thing that I said is that we watched the videotapes back of them conducting the like interview, so to speak, of whether he can return to work. I'm like, why is he conducting it when he was on the ship with them? I'm like, surely that's a massive conflict of interest.
Yeah,
that's not okay.
There's a couple of moments in this where that's great. I hadn't even thought of that. You calling that out, but even like the acting, the Stath acting there is like, he's so like 0 to 100. Like straight away. Oh,
yeah.
Even if he is innocent, as we know he is, he did the right thing. The way he's acting is actually pretty guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the fact of like Helen conducting too. That's hilarious.
It's like if I were a doctor or like a surgeon and Mike had to come into surgery and then I had to do the surgery. That's not okay.
When you said it in the film, I hadn't thought of it either. When we'd seen the film before, I was like, oh yeah, that's actually a really good point.
He shouldn't be. Yeah, nah.
Good on Meg-an. Be doing the psych profile. No, absolutely.
No, he shouldn't be.
But like,
he was under trauma and stress.
Oh yeah, exactly. But it's like apart from that flashbacky bit, when you get Statham on screen, when they're like, oh, we have to get someone, no, not him, that kind of trope, and then they go and find him, and he's just
constant beer in hand.
He is the beer stuff. I know it's one of those tropes, and it can be considered to be maybe a bit insensitive of like making jokes of alcoholism. But I think with that, I'm like, the way they do it is he hasn't destroyed his life from alcoholism and he's like really down and out and they're trying to make light of it. He's just basically like, fuck everyone, fuck everything. I'm going to just kind of chill here in this beautiful place. And I just happen to want to be fairly drunk.
Because I wouldn't even say that he necessarily is an alcoholic, because as soon as he's like with everybody else, there's no more beer.
It's just like summer holiday drinking, isn't it? It's just like, I wouldn't normally have a drink now, but I can because I can. That's what it feels like to me. Yeah, I will say that kind of version of Stath is my least favorite of all Staths, though. That kind of casual Stath.
I love
doesn't do much for me. You get some of that in Mechanic Resurrection, which I watched the one just before this. I like the man on the mission Stath. I've got an objective and I've got to achieve that goal. The hangout Stath is not. But you like it, Mike?
I like the hangout Stath mainly because there's always someone who has to get the Stath out of his I don't give a fuck attitude. And whenever they do that, they just let him like run loose. Obviously, the script is the script that is the things he's saying, but the way he says it to people, he's like, he cuts straight to you. And he's not like overly vindictive or malicious, but he's just like, if you see somebody with a dick, you're like, just don't be such a prick, mate. And it's just, there's no fluffing or bullshit around it. So when he's in that hangout state, that's when he's at his ultimate, I don't give a fuck. Because he's literally like, I don't even want to come with you. I don't want to respect you because at this moment in my character arc, I don't even have an objective. So I'm just kind of floating about, giving the finger to everyone around me. But when you get Mission Stath, although he gets some great one-liners and obviously where the Stath shines is in a lot of his action scenes, and I love that element of him. I just think the hangout Stath, when done right, because someone always has to bring him aboard, and he always doesn't want to, and they're the interactions I really like with him, because
it's interesting.
You know what I mean?
I guess it's a bit like, like Ethan Hunt at Mission Impossible. I just can't imagine him ever sitting still. He is like a shark. He's constantly moving forward. He's constantly doing something. That's how I see the Stath. So when we meet him and he's sat with a hat at a jaunty angle and a beer in the other hand, I just don't buy that he would. I just imagine that he would just be walking somewhere or doing something or fixing this or collecting that or going after that guy, or I don't know. That's just who I have in my head.
I think he does, though. For me, I think that's the kind of part of the drinking element, because I think almost when you are someone who's, I don't want to use the term manic, but kind of like you just cannot sit still at all, as you say. I think when you have someone like that, a lot of the time they have to do busy work, and I think he would kind of wander around wherever he was living because he knew everyone. It wasn't like, oh, the recluse is out. He was talking to like everyone. He knew everyone's names. And they're like, oh, you're out. Oh, you got a beer in your hand again. Like, so I think he does just wander about aimlessly, loosely helping people because he can kind of do a bit of everything because he is quite switched on. And then he's got his own fish. He's got his own like boat because that guy comes back and he's like, when are you going to fix my boat? It's like, so he's obviously contributing somewhat to the community. Maybe he's not fixing the boat and stuff, but I think he probably just wanders about aimlessly probably. And I think the drinking element is kind of a way to be like, I am kind of bored. How do I kind of sit still? I basically just drink, and then even the most boring stuff is entertaining.
Yeah, fair.
Maybe I'm doing a Tony. Maybe I'm just thinking about it too much.
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's just having watched so many of these now, you just don't get it that often. So when you do, I find it a little bit jarring.
You're like, get to the action, get to Stath in like you know, Fast 7, like fighting the Rock, like that's Stath, mechanic abseiling down a skyscraper with a gun, or Crank doing God knows what to everything.
Exactly, that is exactly it. Yeah, I need the adrenalized Stath, not the casual Stath. Yeah, absolutely.
I think Crank is the one end, isn't it? You've got the Crank Stath is one end, and then Hangout Stath, Hawaiian shirt Stath is one end, and Crank Stath is the other end, and it's just depending on where you want. I like all Stath though, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair, obviously, so do I, having spent many hours of my life now watching and discussing the man. Yeah, absolutely.
Mainly rewatching. That's the funny part. You'd actually see
true.
The majority of these anyway. So it wasn't like a project, a new embark. No, it's like, I've already done most of this. Let's retread it. That's how much you love the Stath.
That is true.
I always said it on such tangents. Trying to find where you want to land after that is always quite entertaining to watch.
Now I'm just dreaming of the Stath. I've gone back to the shower.
You think about him all oiled up Stath?
Absolutely, yeah.
I was thinking oiled up dancing.
Stath. Dancing video, oiled up transporter Stath. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's another one.
Soppy in the shower Stath.
Yeah, that's another film that I've seen. Transporter.
You've seen the Transporter? I've seen it years ago, but in such. I think I saw it when playing video games around someone's house once, the kind of thing where someone puts something on one TV and then you're playing Xbox on another. So I remember seeing it, and I've played the games of the Transporter games, but yeah, I've not actually seen it. So you have seen more Stath films than I have. Well, no, I've seen the Fast and Furious films, but you haven't.
Fair enough. Can I say one thing I don't like about this film?
Please do.
Is the love interest lady. I don't like the fact that she volunteered to go down at the bottom, considering that she has a child and that child seemingly doesn't have another parent.
No, they sort of very briefly mention he's off somewhere with a masseuse.
With another woman. Yeah.
But
no, I don't. I'm like, I understand. She's like, we've got to go save our friends. I'm like, yes. Sorry, I just hit the microphone. I'm like, yeah, I get that. I get that you want to save your friends. But at the same time, you do have a daughter, who might not end up having a mum. It's kind of it's a weird one for me.
Of all the people, it's basically, it's trying to save, as you say, a couple of people, your friends, 3 people, I think at the time you're thinking. And it's like, okay, you could say 3 people.
Oh, no, so 3 people. Yeah, there's the woman that's got the screwdriver or whatever it is in her.
Yeah. And so I agree with Megan when she said it. I was like, oh, yeah, because it's Su Yin, I think, is the name of the mum.
Yeah.
And Mei Ying is the daughter. And it is like, there's already something that's gone wrong. This is the first time you were warned something bad was going to happen. You don't really know what's even happened to them. And you're willing to risk your life for these 3 people to leave your kid behind. I'm like, that's really irresponsible.
I like her character, but I don't really like that choice.
It's really interesting because they obviously, I can see why they did it, because when he arrives, he's the classic kind of doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. I'll do whatever I want. Nobody can tell me what to do. He's that classic kind of in inverted commas hero character, isn't he? And I guess they want to establish that she's as much of a badass in her own right. So I get that side of it. I completely agree with you. Like he can be cavalier because he has no responsibilities.
He has nothing to lose.
Yeah. Whereas, as you said, she's got her own chief responsibility that she's already brought onto this rig anyway, permanently. Which I was watching it this time thinking, fuck, that must be a boring life for an 8-year-old.
That's why she just wanders around by herself with like, random toys and things.
Yeah, they cut to her outside one of the meeting rooms, don't they? She's got all her toys laid out in the middle of a metal corridor. Poor kid. But it did also make me think of maybe think of Armageddon. I don't know if you've seen that movie. The Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, Meteor.
No, you have.
Yes.
I've not. I've been on the Universal ride in somewhere.
Armageddon. Yeah, I watched that. I distinctly remember watching that. By chance, it was Valentine's Day, and I ate a lasagna that I made for myself. So on Valentine's Day,
the same colours?
Watched Armageddon and ate lasagna. Is this
your life, Megan, or is this a Garfield comic? What's going on here? They're merging.
Megan was Garfield before she met me. That's why.
It's a great film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's the only time I've seen it. I really enjoyed it.
I've never seen it actually. No.
Oh, it's a great film and perfect for Valentine's Day. It's very romantic.
Yeah, matches the color of lasagna. It works perfectly well.
Yeah,
you know?
But Liv Tyler's character in that, it has grown up on these kind of like oil rigs around all these like oily, sweaty men. So it made me think of that. Like it's almost like obviously we'd have to change culturally and sensitively the characters, but it almost is like a prequel to that. Like this poor kid, I can see where her future's going. She's going to turn to Liv Tyler, who cannot escape the cycle of being around these types of people. Yeah, it's an odd one.
Yeah, I think the reason they do it is because obviously they want her, as you say, Jack, to be like a badass, but also so to prove that she's not just this weak damsel in distress, but also with it has to be Statham's love interest or at least a connection there, and so you can't have like the other parent there because then that changes the whole dynamic. Yeah. So I think it was that reason, but. They should have just added a line being like, "Oh, we'll do it," and there's a system that only she's done, like an experimental ship, submersible that can go way faster that only she's been tinkering with, and no one else has really touched or knows much about, and so she's the only one that can pilot it. If they just did that, it would have solved the issue immediately. You know,
it would. I think one of my chief criticisms of this film is I don't really understand who anyone else is or what they do or the role in the team, or like she's the daughter I get of the guy who's the chief guy, and then she's brought her daughter along. But what does she do? I don't really get it.
The daughter or the daughter of the main guy.
Yeah, so Su-yin.
I thought she was some sort of like marine biologist.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then I thought Ruby Rose was to do with engineering.
She says, I'm sure I designed it, doesn't she?
Yeah, she talks about, because she's talking about the fact that the glass won't break and that she's designed it and it's not plastic, it's some other thing. So I think she's some sort of like engineer. Then
but also a hacker later in the movie.
Yeah, and then there's that other guy, the guy that can't swim.
DJ,
yeah, he's like communications or something. He like does there you go.
You've done a good job there,
Megan, for someone who can't remember things about films, you can remember all that.
Also, right, going back to the kid as well. Sorry, at one point she's in one of those fucking pods playing around in there.
Oh, even Statham goes down there.
I'm like, and then he's like, "Oh, how'd you turn this on?" And then she's like, "Oh, it's there." And then I'm like, so she could just take control of this pod. She knows how to do it. That's not responsible, everyone.
But she's a super smart switched on kid who can have banter with a Statham.
Yeah.
So
I like her. I think she's quite good.
I like her as well.
Yeah, that's why she's cool. You know, you leave your kids out on a random like half submersible oil rig marine biology lab. Leave like a 10-year-old, maybe 8-year-old by themselves, and they'll just become really intelligent all of a sudden. And not socially awkward because they'll be around adults all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she's from a line of intelligent people, isn't she? So I get that as well. Yeah, I think she's really good, the little actress, and I think she does have good chemistry with the Stath. It's not the first time, actually. When he has been cast against a child actor, they normally does quite well in it. And he has more chemistry with her than he does with the Su-yin mum.
They have no real chemistry at all.
There are bits where they try and make it comedic, and it just falls a bit flat, I find.
I think understanding she fancying him because he's very good looking, you'd be like, okay, I can kind of get that. And I can see that he would think she's attractive. But apart from that, it's like, what? He saved her life 3 times. and that's literally
And
it.
she saved his life.
She does save his life.
Oh,
as well,
that's
yeah.
it. Sorry, yeah. So
Yeah, Mike.
no, I don't mean
Women
that's,
can save lives too.
No, I don't mean that's it in that
Oh.
regard. But I hate
You
this.
It's not too, still not too soon, Megan. It's still not too soon.
I hate
He hasn't put that ring on there yet.
Yeah, get rid of me because of my comments on the Meg.
We watched the Meg a few weeks in between us getting together, and then we watched the Meg a few weeks into getting us breaking up.
Oh yes, that's it. It's where the serious sexism that's hidden within me comes out because I watched the Meg.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't just that he's only saved her, but I really don't like the trope where it's like, hey, I've met you. Hey, I've met you too. You saved my life 3 times. I love you. It's like, what the fuck? Like, ease up, okay? Like, I know I've not been in the situation where it's life or death, and I know that when you're under great stress and stuff, you can feel close to people when you go in these situations. But it's that kind of trope. They're on there for what, a few days, maybe?
Yeah, max.
And it's like, oh, he's intelligent. He's fairly intelligent.
They don't tell each other
ways.
that they love each other, though.
No, I know that, but it's that kind of thing.
It's just like romantic sparks.
I guess, but it is still that thing where I guess it is. They do not have to say "I love you," so it does help it.
They're pimping him out essentially. His best mate is proper pimping him out to her. His ex-wife is pimping him out to her. The daughter,
yeah,
they are all desperate for it to happen. I get
think
the daughter. She wants a cool Stath dad. I think
they all would, to be honest.
I think that it works though, because that's what it's like in real life sometimes. Like you get into a group setting and then you see 2 friends hitting it off. You're like, oh, go on, talk to them more. Go on, talk to them more. It happens.
Yeah,
I suppose
her options are pretty limited on that rig too.
Yeah, to be fair.
Yeah,
it's either like, well, everyone dies, so there's not really any.
Everyone's
choice.
got wives and stuff, haven't they? I think, except I think Wall doesn't, because I think he says,
well, he dies
online dating.
So.
No, but I think he says about the photo being an online dating photo. I think, whereas Toshi writes the letter for his wife, and Statham's ex-wife, isn't she the now wife of the main guy who's kind of running it all? Not the dad.
No. I don't think they're going out. I think they're just friends.
Oh, are they?
They've all known each other for a really long time, from what I can gather in the film. They've
thought,
all worked together.
But isn't the Stath's ex-wife, the blonde one? Isn't she now with someone?
I don't quite possibly, but I don't think it's the guy that goes to get him from.
I thought it was.
I don't think it is.
I'm fairly certain they're dating.
I don't think they are.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you're going to watch it again.
Quite possibly.
We will. We'll have to watch it again to get the gossip on these. It's like below deck.
To get the gossip on these, like, very much background. Well, especially the ex-wife background character. She's barely in it.
They're all just supposed to be sharp fodder, really, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, you're right, Megan. It's kind of like here's communications guy, here's inventor girl, here's whatever. Here's actually he says something like, here you're like Bones from Star Trek. Here's Doctor Guy. They're just tropes because you just are waiting for them all to be eaten, aren't you? Do enough get eaten? What do you think?
I think a fair few get eaten.
I think
who doesn't get eaten? Stath, kid,
ex-wife,
friend.
I mean, most of them, to be fair. Ruby Rose doesn't get eaten. DJ doesn't get eaten.
Hella does. Wall does.
Hella?
Yeah, the doctor.
The doctor, yeah.
Well, he deserves to be eaten.
He saves Ruby
Oh,
Rose,
yeah, he sacrifices himself.
That's so Hella and Wall and Toshi, they all die.
And Billionaire.
And Billionaire. Yeah, to be fair. Well, there's a load of civilians.
Yeah, with the
like at the beach.
That's true. That is true.
The beach scene does make me laugh.
That's the best scene, I think.
It's when they're on those floating islands and they're they're being dragged because they're stuck on the fin of the Meg. It's so stupid.
That beach looked like hell on earth before the Meg.
Mate, absolutely not.
Horrific, doesn't it?
They're all so close together as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's awful.
So much urine.
It's also that kid. It would be so much urine. And with the Meg in there as well.
Imagine if the Meg if the Meg went for a wee near you at all. Can you think about how much liquid that would be? That'd be gross.
Well, you probably wouldn't really notice it.
Do fish wee?
Yeah.
I know they poop.
They excrete.
Yeah, I know they poop. I don't know if they.
Anyway. There's also that kid. There's that kid that's just eating the ice lolly, and then
as he's going in the sea.
I know, absolute savage.
Salted caramel before it was cool. Sea salt caramel.
But then also after the Meg's like just attacked a load of people, he's like, chomp chomp, gonna carry on with my ice lolly.
What about the dog though? There's the dog in the water, isn't there?
Oh yeah, the doggy's saved. The doggy lives.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it's definitely the best scene, and we're building up to. I mean, in the movie, it takes quite a while. I hear a lot of people criticizing the pacing of this, that it takes too long for the Meg to get Meg-an, which I think is normal. To me, the pace actually feels pretty good. It feels you need the first act, get to meet everybody. Need the second act. Can we stop it before the big event at the end. But that
And
third
there's
act is go on, mate. Sorry.
Oh, so and there's the like, oh, I got you a surprise because they think
Switcheroo.
they kill it, and then it's not actually. There's
Yeah.
always a bigger fish.
And it's all this. Obviously, it's all riffing on Jaws. It's riffing on Deep Blue Sea, and it's where all these things come in at the end, where you're like, oh yeah, he's like the boy in Jaws, and the dog in Jaws. And
I've never seen Jaws.
Okay.
I want.
It's a film that I'm surprised that I've not seen it.
It's on our list to show Megan, but I controversially don't like it very much.
Oh really? Okay.
Dun.
I watched it. I've seen it twice, and I watched it when I was a teenager. Well, I think when I was maybe nearly 20 or something. I just watched it when I was really super into films. I was watching like a lot of the bigger films, and I watched it, and I was like, "There's a couple of scenes I was like, this is really good," and the rest of it I was like, "This takes forever." And then they ruin it by seeing the shark at the end, and I was like,
spoiler.
Well, I mean, it's a shark film. You're gonna
literally haven't seen it.
It's a shark film.
I don't know anything about Jaws. I literally don't know anything about the Jaws.
Don't know anything.
I don't know anything that happens apart from there's a shark.
Well, yeah. Well, what I've just said, there's a shark. But
Not a
yeah,
spoiler.
I found it kind of. I know what it did, and I know the year when it came out and stuff. It was revolutionary. It was like the biggest. It's probably like the first real summer blockbuster. And I get it did a lot right. There's a lot of great stuff about it. But
even before Star Wars.
No, I know. I'm surprised things existed before Star Wars. My cinema is just literally BS before Star Wars.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that.
Nothing before Star Wars at all. But sorry, that was a tangent. Can I ask actually? Have you seen many shark attack movies, if any? Because you haven't seen Deep Blue Sea, have you?
No,
with
I haven't seen
Samuel
Jaws.
Jackson. You haven't seen The Shallows.
No.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I've not seen The
I
Shallows.
can't really say.
The Beach is probably as close as you get.
Is that the one with
DiCaprio?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, that's
Open Water. That's the one about the guys based on true life that got actually left behind from a scuba.
I
Christ.
can't. I saw that there was a trailer of an unskippable trailer of that in a DVD I had when I was younger, and I hated it. I think that might be one of the reasons why I used to have like quite a big fear of just being left in the open water. Just it's the most terrifying thing ever. But I've been swimming in open water and stuff with whale sharks. So
I agree with that. I also thought you meant unskippable trailers on DVDs is the most worst thing ever because that really is.
No, they are awful, especially on a good movie as well.
And when you bought it, like I own this now, so I don't need to sit like.
Yeah.
I get it on like rentals.
Oh yeah, 100%.
If they wanted to try and get you to rent more, I get it. Like trailers at the cinema, they get to come to the cinema again. I bought this trailer. I bought this movie. I don't want to sit through your fucking trailers.
Sometimes they let you not skip it, but fast forward through it. And I'm like, you're annoying me, but I can deal with that. But sometimes they're like, nope, you can't do anything. You have to watch it. And you're like, oh, come on. Let me get through. Were you laughing because you've only seen one?
The only other shark film that I've seen is Sharknado.
Okay.
Which is why I thought
Slightly different tone to that one.
When Megan said, Finding Nemo, when
but that's not a film about sharks. That's a film that has
the sharks are
in
quite a major scene. One of the most memorable scenes I'd say Finding Nemo is the shark scene.
Nah, I disagree. Anyway,
but anyway, I think that's what surprised me when we were first together and you suggested the Meg, because I was like, by the film taste I know of you, I didn't think that you really would like or had seen many shark films, and I was right. You've not seen any shark attack movies.
Any shark.
I've only seen it,
but that's not by choice. It's just not something that has ever been exposed to me, I guess.
So they're kind of like slashers, aren't they? They're sea slashers, really. Pretty much all. Open Water is a bit different because when you've got a smaller cast, it changes the dynamic. But when you've got these kinds of films, it's pretty much any disaster movie, as well, like 2012, Day After Tomorrow, Poseidon, even shipwreck films. It's really just any things like that. Almost you could view them in a slasher lens because it's really just a thing that is seemingly unstoppable is going after people and they have to escape it. So who's going to survive? And that's really like so many of these kind of films.
I've seen Ben-Hur, but I don't think that's got sharks in it.
I think
it's Ben-Hur.
Is that the one with the chariots?
It's the one that's like, we're going to be rammed. Yeah, I think it's got chariots in it.
Right. I think it's quite an old film, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really
it's like pre-Gladiator, kind of like as in the OG kind of Gladiator.
Anyway, I think there's a shipwreck in that film, which is what I'm thinking of.
That's where I was going. Okay.
But I don't think there's sharks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of shark films because I don't like the thoughts of sharks getting
I find them fascinating.
Oh, yeah, we love seeing them in well, not aquariums because you can't see great whites in aquariums.
Well, you can see sharks in an aquarium.
Yeah. But I mean, you love the water, don't you? That's like your jam.
Yeah, but I think that's probably why I've not seen that many films like this, but because I love the water so much, because I think it would freak me out, because it's real. Like the Meg is fine because it's not a real shark. Like it doesn't is extinct. Like it's not
like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's not there. I'm not going to get attacked by a megalodon. But like, I think if I were to watch other ones, I think it would freak me out a little bit if I were to go in the water, because I love going deep into the water and Mike doesn't. I like being able to look underneath and just see fish and nothing else, but it freaks Mike out.
I like doing that, and I have been like I've done like snorkeling and things like that. I'll go in the water, but yeah, when it gets proper deep, I'm like, when it's like double my height, I'm a bit like, I don't like this anymore.
I think that this film does it quite well. Like, there's a couple of moments when it's black under you and you can't see anything. That's scary.
That's scary, yeah.
Swimming and you can see to the bottom and it's all clear, and that's lovely. I agree with you. Like, I'm always the first in off the boat on holiday and happy to swim out as deep as they'll let you go and all that kind of stuff. I'm with you, Meg-an. But as long as I can see under me, then it gets. And there are a couple of moments here, and I think there's one really good jump scare, which is when Jonas has swum out. When they realise the Meg's been released and he swims out, doesn't he, attached to the tether? And then the Meg just decides to dip under, as sharks do when they're about to attack, and he keeps going under with the goggles and then coming back up and going with the goggles, and shit, suddenly it's there right next to him.
I said that to Mike because I'm not a massive fan of jump scares. I don't like being made jump like that. I think if it's, I just find that sometimes jump scares are there just for the sake of being there.
It's cheap. It's cheap.
In this film they don't do that, but you can tell when something's going to happen, but then it also annoys me when it doesn't, because then you've just got that tension in your chest that doesn't get released.
It's like a sneeze you haven't done.
But I was watching this, I was like, there's going to be a jump scare in a minute. I was like, I can feel it coming. I was like, it's going to jump out of the water and it's going to make me jump, and it did.
Funnily enough, that one of the films that I think has the best jump scares in it is actually Jaws.
Yeah,
I won't say what it is.
That ruin it just in case.
No, but that one jump scare, I think there's one or two in Jaws, but
it's
there's
very
just one
famous.
one.
Yeah,
that's so good. It's one of the best jump scares I think I've seen in any film. That and The Women in Black, I've probably got two of the best, and maybe Insidious as well. But yeah, I don't like horror films where it's constant jump scares, because it stops being an actual scary tense thing and it becomes just the sound guys slamming on a piano or like a organ or something, you know. It's like, oh, that freaks me out more than an image of something most of the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the strongest sequences, isn't it? That you get the jump scare. Pretty impressive how the 70-foot shark can sneak up and surprise you. But they do it a couple of times. Like she's in the shark tank, they do it, so don't they? Frantic looking around. Oh, here I am. But I think that whole sequence with the Stath swimming out and then being dragged back in is all really well done. Like we know he's going to survive because he's the Stath and he's the lead character, but they do manage to get a little bit of jeopardy in there, I think, when it's chomping just by his feet, and suddenly at the last minute they winch him out, don't they, as it kind of again goes for the dive out the water to chomp him down.
It's definitely a good tense film. I think that's the trick. There's certain films like I generally prefer thrillers in a lot of ways to horror, and there's a film, Don't Breathe. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I say to everyone, two of the best recent thriller
Is that
films.
one with the blonde girl?
Blonde girl, blind guy. Yeah. Don't Breathe and Get Out are two very different films, but those two films came out quite near each other, and they're two of my favorite sort of horror-esque, thriller-esque films of the last decade. But Don't Breathe is the most tense film I've ever seen in my life. It's that. Green Room's pretty close. But that film is just, it does it so well because there aren't really that many jump scares, but because it keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. And the Meg, in a more intense, loud way, does do that, because there are points where they're like, where is the shark? We haven't scared it off. It's going to get us at some point, and we can only fight it back or shoot the tracker in it,
especially when you're first introduced to it as well.
Yeah.
Well, like when they don't know what it is and they've lost communication with the people downstairs, you're like, oh fuck, there's something there.
Oh yeah.
Something's coming.
Yeah, and I like that the first time something actually gets almost damaged or destroyed is the giant squid actually is the thing that destroys it. And then after that, it becomes, obviously that gets then eaten by the mini Meg, or we think the mini Meg. Or no, when
you think it is the Meg.
No, when they're first down there, it is the Meg, and then there's a bite mark, isn't there, or something, and then they go.
But that could still be the mini one.
Because it
didn't have teeth.
Yeah, he works out
the bite radius is not, from the window is not the same size as the mini Meg they catch.
Because there's technically two fake outs, isn't there? Because there's the first one when they think they kill the Meg, but they haven't. And there's also when they find the whale that basically it seems like the Meg is left.
Oh yeah.
And they're like,
that's
oh,
what didn't have any teeth. It was the whale.
Which I thought was quite clever. I like.
Yeah, that was clever. I forgot about that.
again, it makes me think of, I mentioned it a minute earlier in passing, but like Jurassic Park, I realized that Jurassic Park movies, well, I enjoy all of them. I haven't seen the newest one, but I enjoy all of them. But they are basically horror films for kids.
Oh yeah.
Because those films are literally just watching people get mauled by dinosaurs, especially Jurassic World. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I went to
actively.
a showing of Jaws and Jurassic Park back to back, and it's really fascinating seeing them both in such close tandem. And the plot beats and the structure of the movies are essentially exactly the same. Like that first kind of T-Rex attack comes at the exact point in Jaws where there's that kind of sorry, Megan, spoiler. There's a shark attack in that movie.
First scene.
So like it's interesting how like they really like line up. You could almost like, you know, people split screen and they do these kind of like comparison things. You could do that for Jaws and Jurassic Park, I think, and you'd see how many of these hit at the same time. It really is like a, as you said, like they're monster movies, but they are slasher movies, but with monsters at the core. I mean, Jaws was, I guess, technically considered a passable kids movie. That was a PG when it came out, which is
I know.
Crazy to think. Maybe so is Jurassic Park. I think it's 12 now.
They a lot of the time when they do things on like, the Blu-ray re-release, a lot of it is an excuse to recertify it because it costs money to recertify. And you have to, if you get it recertified, you basically then have to release everything under the new certification and things. Because it got basically created, I think it was a combination of the Batman movies, the Tim Burton Batman films, and the early Spider-Man movies in the 2000s. Like between that era, there's quite a few films and I think even Indiana Jones as well. They were like these films where it was like a PG is they are PGs, but there's a lot in this is a bit much. But like a 15 is like adult, and that's why in the UK and in America, it's PG-13 and 12A, which is basically kids even under this age can go see it. Which is like how you get everyone to go see it is you make it a 12A, and they're constantly pushing that boundary. And this is is this a 12A?
It's a 12, yeah.
Yeah. So you could take a 10-year-old into the cinema to see this, and I could see this as a 10-year-old.
Do you not think so, Megan?
I don't know.
I
guess. Huh?
I was gonna say because you interact with a lot of, because you're obviously a teacher. Yeah, there's a lot of 10-year-olds that you interact. I'm not saying Jack isn't, but obviously because there's a lot of 10-year-olds you probably interact with that you could like, they wouldn't be able to handle a film like this. Whereas like
I
when
think
I grew
it just
up,
depends on the child.
Yeah.
You have to gauge it with the individual kid, because one thing like I know some probably 12-year-olds that if they were to watch some of the Harry Potter films, they would be freaked out. Whereas then I've got other ones that are talking to me about different films, and I'm like, you should not be watching that. Yet they are.
Stranger Things.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
And I love Stranger Things.
In my less so now, but in my previous school, because obviously a new series hasn't come out, so people aren't talking about it as much. But in my previous school, when the most recent series came out, there were some year 7s that were like obsessed with it, and I'm like, you're 11 years old,
11
like
and 12, yeah.
I'm just like, that is mental to me.
Squid Games as well was this
one, wasn't it? Yeah. I never watched it, but I'm just like, and also I haven't seen it, but Saltburn is another film that loads of kids are talking about. But from what I understand, the film is messed up.
Yeah, we've got friends of us who are our age who are like, it's intense.
But yeah, I guess it just depends on the individual. Like I know plenty of kids that if they were to watch this, I think it would freak them out and they would never go in the water again. But then there are some kids that would be like, oh yeah, Jason Statham.
Yeah. I offered it to my oldest is 11, he's turning 12 in a couple of months. So I said to him, I'm going to watch this for a podcast. Do you want to watch with me? And he was quite interested to begin with until the time got closer and closer. And I think he copped out because of the sharkiness. He's not great in water. So I think probably it was for the best. Yeah. I think it's fairly tame, I think, for a 12, really.
There's a lot of cutaways.
The gore,
the shark just gets you. It just kind of gets you and you're gone.
Is there that much swearing in it? I can't, there's not that much swearing.
No, I can't think if there been any
less than in a Marvel film. Less than in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Jesus.
Yeah.
A couple of F-bombs.
We've been making our way through all of those. Well, recently we've been doing it in chronological order. So Captain America, Captain Marvel, like as if it was historic rather than release order. Yeah, absolutely. There's much more grown-up stuff that's going on in those. I think language-wise, storytelling-wise, like what's happening to characters, it's packaged in a day glow, way.
Innuendo. Innuendo you can almost mask. Like we used to talk about one of your least favorite films, Jack, Shrek. The amount of innuendo. The main character's called literally Lord Fuckwad. And it's and I didn't even realize that till a few years ago.
That
I only realized that was from a meme about it. Yeah, and there's the whole bit when when he sees his castle and he's like, oh, he must be compensating for something. And then when you're a kid, you go, yeah, he's got a giant castle. It's like, oh no, he's got a tiny penis. And it's that kind of, and it's hidden behind innuendo.
And there's that song when they're at the castle and it's like, wipe your face.
Yeah, we cut the grass, wipe your face. Yeah. So there's things like that you can do. But I think with Marvel, they're getting a little bit, maybe not lazier, but like in the Guardians films, because of James Gunn, it's always been pushing it. Like there's the black light Jackson Pollock joke. It's like,
oh, brilliant. Yeah.
But kids wouldn't get a Jackson Pollock, who the hell that is, what a black light is. Like, so there are ways to do it. But with a giant shark literally eating and killing people, it's harder to mask. So I think that's why, it's 12. But I feel like it does feel like a 12 at points. And I think for me, I think it takes away a bit because I quite like over the top gory stuff. I like Grindhouse and things like that. I think those kind of things are fun. So
I think if this was over a 12, I wouldn't find it as enjoyable.
Well, yeah, I was going to say.
I think it would be too much for me.
Well, I guess we'll see about the Meg 2, I assume.
Huh?
The Meg 2 is going to be apparently a bit more intense in that regard.
Is it still a 12?
It's still a 12, yeah. It's still very much hitting the same market. It's
ramped up a bit.
Yeah, but not in that way. Ramped up as in like, what's the right way? It's Ben Wheatley, who does do really like quite difficult to watch stuff at times. So people were wondering if that's what we were going to get, but it's ramped up as in like dialed up to 11, I suppose is the way to think of it. Really, it's like you thought that this was crazy. Whoa,
yeah.
This look what else we can do. You thought Jason Statham
couldn't be more Jason Statham.
Yeah, like underwater, pushing the Meg away with his. I'm doing it with my hand, but pushing the Meg away with his foot so it doesn't eat him and Su Yin was a badass moment. Well, wait till you see what he does in the next one. So it's that kind of escalation, I suppose, of awesomeness rather than more gory or gruesome. Or
would you want it more gory? Do you think this film, or if they made like a Meg 3, would you be up for it being a 15?
I mean, sure, and I'd watch it, but I don't think it needs it because I don't think that's. I mean, this is very much an East-West movie, isn't it? I mean, it's co-financed. There's a reason why the main actress is of Eastern origin. It's also that they sell it to the two different markets.
When the Chinese government comes in and helps everyone at one point.
Yeah,
they're the heroes of the story almost at one point, and it's like, okay.
And things like Transformers have gone down this path as well. This kind of like co-financing, and it means you've got to bring lots of different characters. And obviously that's a good thing anyway in terms of representation. But the flip side of that is it's quite a commerce-driven. It's quite capitalist, really, is what they're doing. They're trying to broaden their market. So if they get enough funding and enough characters in the movie, it gets around some of the laws that they have in China about what films are allowed to show. They're only allowed to show a certain number of films a year. Of Western films a year without it being adding something to their culture, essentially. So by this having some Chinese characters and having Chinese government and Chinese money behind it, it means it qualifies anyway.
I see. So it's not confined by the limit of Western films that they can consume.
No.
Interesting.
And this made shitloads of money, so it obviously worked. And actually, the most money it made was in China.
Did you say that this was at the start? This is the highest grossing film that Statham's been in as a leading man.
It is, yeah. So only things bigger than this are the two Fast and Furious movies, which did over $1 billion. Yeah.
This did better than Spy and even the Mechanic films, and
by a long way.
I can see why this one would have done better than Spy, because I think Spy, because of like who the protagonists are, I feel like because it's Melissa McCarthy, there's going to be a lot more women that are going to watch it. And I think it's going to be less inclined for men to want to go and watch it without creating stereotypes.
I mean, I was like that. I saw the film trailer and I was like, I've got nothing against Melissa McCarthy. I think she's great, but she isn't enough for me to want to watch the film.
Yeah, this is
so
what
I was
I'm
like,
saying.
I'm not. And then Jude Law, and I saw Stath was in it, but I was like, I'm not that fussed by it. And then when you said you saw it and you guys talk about it, I was like, actually, that sounds really cool. And I think it's one of McCarthy's best roles.
I just feel like this film, in comparison to Spy, just because it keeps coming up, is more accessible to a wider demographic.
I guess
as opposed to
12
Spy.
as well.
It doesn't, not that Spy pigeonholes people to a certain demographic and it's like only this person can watch this film. I just feel like it's got a narrower entry for people to access it, if that makes sense.
Well, especially as it is a 12A, PG-13, whatever, and it is that kind of thing where you go, do you want to watch this shark film? And if it's with someone who's not that fast, you're like, it's going to be really gory. Also, well, it's a 12A, like, well, it can't be that bad. So,
but also on top of that, sharks are massive. Like in
Shark Week, not literally,
not literally, but like in America, they've got they've got Shark Week, and on the
Mm.
Discovery Channel they just show documentaries and movies about sharks and
It's
shark
like a
attacks.
whole
and
cultural
it's
thing,
a
isn't it?
massive thing. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't surprise me that this film did well, because
Yeah.
I think it coincided with Shark Week.
Oh, I'm sure
I think it did coincide with Shark Week when it came out at the cinema.
And it's mentioned in the movie. They even say, don't they, when they're talking about like shutting the project down, that's what Billionaire says. He says, like, you know, haven't you heard of Shark Week? And we've got to capitalize on this, and we've got to basically wants to turn it into a tourist attraction, doesn't he, instead of it being a research project. Yeah, absolutely. So I was just looking at the numbers. Yeah, the closest thing to this is Spy, funnily enough, which made 235, and then the Expendables movies are all pretty high in the hundreds of millions.
They're less than Spy and this, the Expendables as well.
Yeah, 214 for the first Expendables made 274.
So is this grossing? Sorry, or
grossing box office worldwide? Yeah,
is grossing minus the budget?
No.
Okay, interesting.
No,
because I thought this is a lot cheaper, this film, like the Expendables or even Spy, I'd imagine.
This had 150 million budget, so pretty high.
Okay. It's weird because it doesn't. This film feels like a really good B movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, it does, not in a bad way, but it doesn't feel like this is like a big Hollywood. I guess it's not because it's split financed and stuff like that. But like, it feels like, in a way, Sharknado is a D movie that, because it just came out at the right time, it shot up and it became this big thing. Piranha, I'd say, is kind of like a C movie, and then that kind of did this, and then Meg is kind of like a B movie. And it seems like there's probably 1 in 100, or probably maybe 1 in 20 films that come out like this, manage to kind of push through the kind of to the upper echelon, almost bigger than they should be. And I like this film, and I like Piranha, but you see how well they did, and just something happened. They came out at a time, just the perfect time, where loads of people went to the cinema to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, Megan's probably right. Shark Week, I think that's probably a cynical decision they made, which paid off. Yeah, the co-financing thing definitely, and the 2 different markets. I mean, the Stath is big at this moment, isn't he? He's just been added to the Fast movies, and the last 2 of those have made over $1 billion. Even something like Ruby Rose, like she's at kind of the pinnacle of her.
At one point.
Yeah,
when she was in Orange.
That's what I knew her from. Yeah.
So this is just post that, I think, and she's been in the Triple X movie. She's been in John Wick 2, so she's like a big deal right now, and she's in a small role here. So yeah, I think something just hit about this just at the right time.
Shark Week, I've just looked it up, is either in July or August.
And this came out in August.
And this came out in late July, August.
It came out when you were in America, and it was still showing when you came back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was mid-August, I think, in the UK it came out. I think it was in America a little bit before that. But yeah, it's interesting that this film did that well. Like, I knew it was one of Statham's. Like, when I think of Statham, this is one of the films I think of. But that's partly because, although I like Statham as a person, I haven't actually watched that many Statham films. And because obviously with you and I, whenever we talk about Statham, it's got Jason Statham. And we always think of the Meg as well. So it's kind of that association. I guess it's the face. Whereas I haven't actually seen the Expendables movies. I've seen bits and pieces of them, but I like those kind of films to a degree, but I never was like, oh yeah, I need to see that at the cinema. And I'm always like, there's always tomorrow to watch the Expendables. There's no like real big drive to go see it. And I think if we hadn't seen it at the cinema, this would probably be one of those films where I'm like, oh yeah, I want to watch this at some point. But because that's why I like going to the cinema, because sometimes it's just like, let's just go see it. Because so many films come out and I'm like, yeah, I want to go see that. And then when it comes out in home release, especially when it's on like Disney Plus or something where it's not going anywhere, you're like, I could watch it now or in 4 years, so there's no rush. Yeah. And I think that's what won with this as well, being a summer blockbuster, and everyone's like, you know what, let's go in the cinema and watch an under 2 hour long shark movie, with the Stath in it. Like, why not? I guess.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly it. Those people that perhaps hadn't ever heard of him before, seen him in a Fast movie, went to go and see it, and I think just it was well timed in every regard. Yeah.
Do we want to talk about the Stath himself then in this film, and his because I know in Spy you guys were talking quite a lot about his how high is his acting in it, and I would be interested to hear from you, Jack, like what you think of his acting range in this film.
I mean, he's not asked to do much, really, is it? I mean, it's slip on that persona again. It's try and form a bond and a romantic relationship. We've touched on that with Li Bingbing's Su Yin, which doesn't really work. It's weird because I think she's fine and he's the Stath, but something about them just doesn't spark, does it? He's really good with the girl, I think. I really buy their chemistry and the fact that that she would want him to be a surrogate dad, and he'd be interested in doing that for her. That's but then really it's about getting him in the water and getting him doing shit, isn't it?
Yeah,
there was a bit of vulnerability when he was trying to get back into the water for the first time, when he was hesitating trying to get into the water.
Oh, in the pod right at the start. Yeah, that's true. And actually the first time when he's going to go out on the cable and he's like, are we really sure this is the best idea for me to do this? And even in the shower, actually, we were joking around about the fall moment when he comes out, but when we first cut to him in the shower, you can see it's taken a toll on him, can't you? He's sort of leaning on the shower, and just it looks like he's been there for a long time. It's really steamy, and he's been trying to gather himself.
But I think his relationship with his ex is really like positive, because a lot of the time you get it where you get an ex and they hate each other and they're really horrible and rude and all that, and they're just
one of the first things he says, he's like, basically says, "I told you so."
Because that was one of the last things she said, wasn't it?
Because from what I gather is that they were together. It was kind of turbulent. He didn't want to carry on doing it, and she did, and that's why they broke up. So, like,
and they both respect each other. It wasn't like one of them cheated or one of them's a horrible person. They're like, it just wasn't. We want to do different things in our life. It wasn't working out. But that's why I was like, are they going to get back together? Is that kind of thing? Where that whenever an ex is introduced in like a high stress situation in films, a lot of the time it's kind of that can be hinted.
To be fair,
and it wasn't with that. Really,
I think the first time that I watched this, I did think that she would be the love interest, and that it would be a case of them seeing if they could get back together. But nah. Yeah,
she gets. Do we think she gets fridged in this film? Because
what do you mean?
So there's a term which is fridging, which is a woman's role in a film. This is a negative thing. Is sometimes there's a woman whose her only role in it is to basically normally die and to give the protagonist, who's a male, a reason to do things. So like John Wick, for example, the wife in John Wick, her own.
No, come on, it's a dog in John Wick.
Wait, but the wife is the dog's connected to the wife. The dog is the catalyst, but the wife.
He retires because of the loss of his wife, and he can't.
He retires,
live with his grief, doesn't he?
I think he retires for his wife, and then lives a nice, calm life with his wife, and then she passes away. Then and she sends in the dog and stuff. I suppose John Wick was a bad example, and I love all 4 John Wick films.
I don't think so, because I don't think it logically. I don't like. Funny that you connect it with John Wick, because in John Wick, sometimes it is just ludicrous how people don't die. Like the fact that John Wick is not dead is ridiculous. Like, especially in the most recent film, which it is just insanity. Some of those scenes, I'm like, you would literally be dead. I don't think she's fridged, or whatever the terminology is, because it makes sense for her not to be in it. She's literally got a stab wound to the stomach. She's not going to be able to contribute anything. She needs to get better.
I like her as a character. I like the portrayal, and I like the relationship with them. But I feel like she seems at the start to be quite a main character, and then she's the reason Steve goes down there.
Yeah.
And then she gets injured, and then she's out for the entire film, apart from right at the very end. Then she's get like a few seconds with the kid.
I hear you. I guess it had to be somebody that he was personally connected to, didn't it? Because he'd given up the life. It was the only way they were going to get him back. So, yeah, it would have to have been her or Cliff Curtis, who plays his best mate. It would have been one of those 2 people, I suppose. And then it would have been the wife coming to get him. And then would he have? I get it, but I think probably that's the conscious choice they made not to kill her, was in order to avoid that being something that could be labelled on the movie.
I think it's because I like her so much, and I found that she probably had the best chemistry with the Stath, I think, or at least one of them. When they're on screen, they do generally feel like they are a couple, or they were a couple, and they've got that kind of, to be almost vulgar in a way. Often when you sleep with someone, there's a degree of being comfortable with someone else, and you normally can see that when people are in group situations, especially. There's just a vibe you can see of a level of comfort certain people have with each other, and I found that.
I've seen you naked vibe is what you're saying.
Basically, yeah. There's no more.
You're not being vulgar at all. You're being very, very bashful, I would say. When I say, just get straight to it. I've seen your dick. I've seen your vagina. It has been in me. Yeah. I've been in you. Yeah, that's vulgar.
It's all. Yeah, that is. No, it's more vulgar than this film is, actually, funnily enough.
That was not 12 rated.
No, definitely not. That was pushing past the PG-13 straight into the 15.
I mean, we've already said the phrase "cum gutter," so I don't think it.
Who started that on the podcast?
And who started that? It was Jack who introduced you to that word. It's him. He's bringing the tone of his own showdown.
Have
Yeah.
some decorum.
Yeah,
For the love of
absolutely.
God.
But I just think I liked her as a character so much.
Yeah, she was cool.
And the first half I was like, she's really switched on. She's really intelligent. She's a cool character. She's got great chemistry. And then halfway through the film, she's like, she's wounded and she's out. And I'm like,
It's not even halfway through. It's like in the first.
It's
It's
the first act,
It's the
isn't it?
first bit. Yeah.
And the end of the first act is when they rescue the people again. Then the second act is the
Mhm.
fake baby Meg. And then the third act is the big boy Meg and the beach scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, I quite liked most of the cast in this as well. I thought they all served a purpose to a degree.
I liked all the characters. I just thought the billionaire was insufferable, but that's his purpose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had DJ as like the comic relief. There's the like Tyrese from the Fast and
I
Furious
was
movies,
literally
isn't
going to say, basically loudly shouting.
I
About
must
everything that's happening.
admit, actually, I found him probably the most annoying character.
Yeah.
Have you seen Deep Blue Sea, Mike?
With
Is Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, with because it's they genetically modify the sharks, don't they? And that kind of stuff. Yeah, I saw that years ago, but I have seen it. Yeah.
Or LL Cool J, that movie.
Yes,
he's like the chef who also is a preacher, and so yeah, DJ is very much in that mold, isn't he?
Yelling every punchline and being like, "Hey, this is what the audience is thinking," but to a really over the top degree. Like no one would.
To be fair, they're
freaking out.
He's
the
quite
situation.
a tropey character, I would say.
Yeah,
he's a very stereotyped character.
He's he's kind of funny. But
you mean a black man that can't swim is a stereotype?
No, I wasn't even thinking that.
I know it's terrible.
They even say that
it's the comments like, I didn't sign up for this. This isn't what I was here for.
I didn't sign up for that shit.
Yeah, it's just like comments like that is very typical.
Oh, wait, go back in the water? What? Am I the only sane person here? Like that kind of thing. Yeah, that happens.
But then he has quite a sweet scene and quite a sweet moment with Mei Ying as well, doesn't he? So I guess that sort of helps to redeem him. He's when the very probable helicopter crashes onto the ship, he throws her off, doesn't he? And then tries to be responsible for looking after her in the sea and stuff. And then she has to take over, doesn't she?
Yeah, she has to save him, which is cute and funny. I mean, I think with this, all the characters do kind of balance each other out to a degree. I think it feels like, I think if you have one more person, it would feel too clustered. And I think if you had one less person and didn't kill an extra person, it would feel like not enough people died.
Yeah.
I think it's just about. I think one other person could have probably died. Like Ruby Rose, if she'd have died, it wouldn't have really mattered, but it'd have felt more weighted. A lot of the supporting characters, really, if they had died, it would have been like, oh, that sucks. Like the main guy who's the friend of Statham, who kind of brings him back. Yeah, like, he died. Like I don't overtly want people to die, but I think you kind of then it would get a bit too much, maybe. And obviously, I don't know if any of them are in the Meg 2. And I'm like, if some of them were, I'd be up for that. But if they're not, it's like, oh.
Yeah, I guess, Megan, you said it right at the start. If you probably worked out the body count, considering what happens at the beach, it's probably astronomically high, actually, the amount of people the Meg eats in the movie. It's just a lot of the core cast make it out alive, don't they? I mean, I'm glad Zorbin guy gets eaten. And that's a good joke on top of the platforms being pulled.
Yeah.
With him getting like bitten and then like sucked in. It made me think of like those like pearls you get in bubble tea.
Oh yeah.
he's like being eaten by the Meg, like one of those things.
I did like watching the shark eat a lot of giant things.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you mentioned it before with the cage thing that Ruby Rose makes, and Su Yin is in the cage thing. And I quite like that. Again, she puts herself in danger, but I quite liked that it wasn't the Stath. Yeah, she goes down for it, and I was like, actually, he's
the expert, and that
it makes sense for her.
I was like, I actually quite like the fact that it's not like, hey, the Stath is here, he does everything.
In that circumstance, it makes obviously it's dangerous, but it makes sense for her to go down into the water because, as you said, she is the expert.
It's a nice moment between them, isn't it? Sat on the edge of the boat. Sorry, go on, yeah.
No. But when she goes down in the little like bubble ship, it doesn't make sense for her to go down there and risk herself because she doesn't know, like, obviously she knows what she's doing in the sense that she knows how to control the ship, but like ultimately it's not her area of expertise.
Exactly. But it's funny because a lot of shark films, they often do have a fair body count, but I find actually a lot of the time there's a few members of the main cast and then lots of faceless people.
Yeah.
But I guess this is what's happened here as well. I mean, you've got a lot of the mercenaries die because when Billionaire Boy goes out, obviously all of them die. I mean, I think one of the most harrowing parts of the film is when the helicopters crash. I've got a real thing about
the
helicopters
the
crashing.
journalism people.
Yeah, I don't mind a helicopter being shot down and crashed in a film, What freaks me out is a helicopter hitting another helicopter, or several helicopters hitting each other, because I just
And then the debris flying off. Like,
yeah, because like when helicopters are like flying ceramic plates, like you throw anything into that, you throw a big rock into the blade, and as soon as a crinkle in it, the whole thing will just fall. And it's like that freaks me out. You're basically in like a flying chassis of almost a car. And the thing propelling you into the air is really quite like almost thin metal in a sense. At least in a plane, it feels like it could take a bit more than like a big rock. So yeah,
I think that's really insightful, because I think it ties into some of the thoughts I was having this time watching it, was that actually there's little moments of commentary in this final section. And I was making light of the Zorbing thing, but clearly it's taking the piss out of the fact of this as being like a pastime. Like, this is ridiculous. Why would a human choose to do this? And I think the helicopter thing is clearly a critique of journalism, isn't it? And the fact that they'll do whatever it takes to get a story. But there's that really interesting shot of the camera underneath the sea at that bay as well, and it's littered with like suntan lotion and all these things on the seabed. And I thought, oh, actually, there's a kind of a little message here going on at the
it's
same
almost
time.
like you deserve it, almost, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. It is, because the people who are doing the right thing, I guess, survive, don't they? Hella dies doing the right thing, or to save somebody else. Yeah, exactly. But all these people who are bad for the environment and who just care about their selfish lives, they're the ones who get chomped.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I think it's probably a mix, but it is also with thinking we need to have a big threat, a big finale, and something for the trailer, because I remember the inflatable rings.
Yeah,
in
you
the
can see
trailer.
all the rings.
Yeah. I think I always confuse, because I always think in this film the shark jumps up and bites the helicopter, but I'm confusing that with Jurassic World. I think it might even be the second one. It's Jurassic World.
Yeah. But the
right at the end. It's almost like a post-credit scene when the thing jumps out of the water and snot.
No, it's at the beginning.
There's Jurassic World one.
Of Fallen Kingdom, isn't it? When they've gone to get stuff from the island.
Yeah. And that's because spoiler alert for Fallen Kingdom, everyone, it leads into Dominion, which is when the dinosaurs are out. And that scene where the shark jumps up and gets people, that scene is in the end when it's saying they're all escaping, isn't it? The giant shark.
I don't know, but I remember the scene that you're talking about.
But that I always thought, the Meg jumps up and bites a helicopter, but it doesn't. It's actually the helicopters crash into each other. So it's like human error of them just not paying enough attention, and that freaks me out the most.
I did watch a little 12-minute documentary, fantastically named Chomp on this, about the making of this, and that they do talk about that scene and how, like, although it is, you're right, like, it's there for entertainment, it's a big scene we need for the end of the movie, there is a lot of thought that went into it. The sense that the Meg goes there because of obviously that area being so populated, but the splashing, we hear them say it a couple times in the movie, like the splashing around gets their attention, but the way that they're behaving there gets into this feeding frenzy, which is why it does just eat so many people here. So there was like logic behind it, which I thought was quite interesting. And the key thing sorry, man, go on.
No, sorry. It's because there's that one group which is where the kids eating the ice lolly and they're all still, and that's why they get left alone.
Yeah. Which is really interesting, because I watched a Jackie Chan movie to talk with Scott the other day, and we were joking around talking about one of the characters in that works in a sea life aquatic center, and she says, "Oh, if you stay still, the shark will not go past you. Oh, it will go past you and will not notice you and won't attack you." And this is at the start of the movie. So you're like, I think this might be important later on when Jackie Chan's in the water with a shark, but actually might have been founded in some truth. So when that episode comes out on 20th Century Geek, I'm now formally apologizing for misconstruing why sharks attack people in that episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's vibrations in the water, because I think one of their main senses, because they have atrocious eyesight, they have a great sense of smell, but it's actually they have like electromagnetic pulses they can basically feel. So they can feel like, and a lot of sea animals, bigger ones, can feel something like that. I know dolphins and like orcas and whales and things, they can speak the same language and communicate in that way. But a lot of them, they can feel like electromagnetic, like things in the water, because that's basically
like
what's alive.
They feel the vibrations in the ground.
Yeah. There's a lot of things like that.
Oh yeah, I remember that from that famous
episode of The Simpsons.
Episode. Oh, okay. Like Planet Earth, when the lizards are trying to get away from all the snakes.
Yeah.
Oh, that one. Yeah,
that mental one.
The running.
But yeah, there's an episode of The Simpsons as well where they attract the snakes with vibrations or something. I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure there is
When
anyway.
they drive the snakes out or something. Yeah.
Kind of like the Pied Piper.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I do like. I think the end scene is great. I think the pacing of this film. I think the middle you might be to shave off a smidge, but I think generally it works quite well. It's like
I wasn't bored at any point. I wasn't like checking the clock to see when the film was going to finish. So
it's kind of middling in its genre, isn't it? Because it's kind of like it's not a comedy, but there are comedic elements, but it's a lot less funny on the rewatch than I remember it being. I remember it leaning a lot more on the comedy, but it's more like almost Marvel style comedy, where it's like not actually funny. Like just there's a few quips and a few kind of funny-ish things that happen, or maybe some like on-screen irony and things. But like it's an action film, but it's also got horror-ish elements. But because it doesn't lean into the horror too much, like I'd say Jurassic Park, especially the first one, way more of a horror film than this is. But you'd think by the trailers and the general idea, you'd go like, oh no, the Meg's going to be a lot scarier. But actually, they don't raise the fear element that much. There's the scene in the water where she's looking and there's a jump scare, but like for shark films, for me, I'm like, maybe it's because it's normal size sharks when it happens, but you're like watching someone swim away and you normally like see the shark itself or from the position of the shark, whatever, and it's getting closer and closer. And I think in other shark films, someone normally gets bitten by a shark and then they get away. But you can't really be bitten by the Meg because it's so massive. Either it basically swallows you whole, chomps you in half, or misses you. Whereas other sharks can kind of get your ankle or something. And I think in this film, there's no show of the blood going in the water, because I think it's in like every shark film. I think maybe Jaws and this one, where you know the blood goes in the water, you see it go up the shark's nose, and then suddenly
and then the pupils dilate.
Yeah. Like, you've not even seen these shark films, and you know that's a trope. Like,
so it's in this in Finding Nemo.
Of course, there we go. Oh, the film that's not a shark film, hey?
Gotcha. Start with me.
Gotcha. Nearly an hour later. But yeah, I think that's part of it, where it's not that horror-y because you don't have the same level of tense. It is tense in parts, but it's still kind of action-y tense.
Yeah, I suppose the only blood that you really see in the water is when they throw the chum in.
That's a very cool scene, actually. It looks amazing.
And I think, and Hella as well, I think, is the only one, isn't it? Because they all stand at the back. Oh my God, he's gone. Yeah, you're right. There's pretty bloodless, which is again why I think it's down towards that softer end of 12, really.
Yeah, I think it's scary when machines flying around. I know it's about the helicopter, but like when that giant crane is swinging about, I'm like, that will kill you. That hits you, you are dead.
Oh, what, the rig thing that it's like got in its mouth?
Yeah. When it starts, the boat starts to go, and you're like, that's more scary. The boat capsizing, and also that's what kills Suyin's dad, isn't it? It's not the Meg directly; it's the Meg kind of capsizing the ship, and that whole lifeboat crunching him. Which reminds me of a certain scene in Andor as well.
Yes, of course.
More people need to see Andor, so I don't want to spoil what it is because a lot of people haven't seen it for some reason. Ria. So a lot of people need to go watch Andor. But yeah, there's a scene where something similar happens, and it's like, oh, the crunch.
Yeah, that is brutal.
And when he gets hit by, when you see it in the Meg, when he gets hit by that thing, and you hear the thump, you know, oh, that's kind of smart.
That's quite well handled, that scene, actually, when they get back. And Suyin takes Mei-yin away, and it's silent, and it's not overly dramatic, but that's quite emotional, that scene as well. Although, as with all these movies, everyone gets over it pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
And like 5 minutes later, they're making a joke, or like, well, hey, let's go. Or the grief never seems to last long in these kind of movies, does it?
No,
that's when
I feel like it's always because there's so much other drama going on, they can't really process the grief. They can't deal with it until after the fact.
Well, to be a bit to be a bit depressing, I found from personal experience, when someone close to you dies, the day of it is no one I know has been killed by a shark or a giant prehistoric extinct shark, to clarify, but like the day someone close to you dies, I found that it happens, that it's like shock on the first day, but the real grief and upset seems to seep in the days following. I find it's a real easy cop out for any film to have a death in it, to be like, people don't feel grief for a day or two, so we're fine as long as it keep moving the action.
I think it's fair. And combined with what Megan's saying as well is the fact that they're so still in what's going on.
Yeah.
There's that kind of gallows humor that, like paramedics have and things, isn't it? But like they have to joke about stuff in a dark way in order to deal with what they're going through.
Yeah. It's one of those. Yeah. Well, shall we I almost said get onto a final review, but we're not on the
podcast.
We're not on the VHS Strikes Back, and I'm not the host.
I don't think there's much else left to talk about, is there? Other than perhaps the stunt work, perhaps the stuff we often talk about with the Stath. And again, in this documentary, they made it really clear about how impressed they were with how much he did himself, and that scene we were talking about when he's being dragged along in the rope underwater, that was all him.
That's cool.
Because he used to be a swimmer, didn't he? Like
So he was a diver, yeah,
Diver.
absolutely. And there's a famous behind the scenes story from Expendables 3 as well, where he almost died on set. And that was water based too, where the truck he was driving, the brakes failed. I know you'll know, Mike, sorry. Because you're a very loyal listener, so I appreciate it. But the brake, he was driving a truck in this movie, get along a dock, and the brakes fail.
Wow.
And it goes in and it sinks straight to the bottom. And he had to like unbuckle himself and climb out and swim to the top. And they said because he is basically trained to deal with being underwater, this is why he survived. If that was anyone else, they might have been dragging him out.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's mental.
Whilst Sly stood on the dock filming it all on his iPhone.
And then he got out and he went off with the medics, came back, and then was like, "Yeah, let's keep going, keep filming." Whereas it's like, and they were
losing the light. Let's go.
Yeah, and you said on the podcast, you're like, a lot of people would have been like, "I need a day to recover," or been real drama queens about it. Steve was like, "No, I'm fine. Let's just get on with it." And you're like, "That's so impressive." I think the Stath, especially the more I listen to back to the filmography, I'm just like I so would love to just meet the Stath properly.
I think I want to watch
for a day, just a day out with the Stath. Do you know what I mean? Like and I think with like young, I would quite like to have like young friends, kids and stuff. You know, like proper family around. Just because I think the way he interacts with kids, as we see in films, is like you get certain famous people who just know. Jack Black's one of them. Mark Hamill's one of them. Like people meet Mark Hamill, they say you meet Mark Hamill with your kids, he'll address the kid first, and it's just how he is. And it's like that kind of thing of making kids your equals. And I think Jason Statham would be like, "Oh yeah, more gruff and stuff," and like, you know, "I'm tougher than you." And then the little kid would like be like, "Let me try," and give him a little punch in the arm, and he'd be like, "Oh, that did really hurt." You know, I think Danny Dyer would probably be a bit like that.
I was thinking Danny Dyer as well.
We watched him on Bake Off recently, didn't we? And we're like, actually, he would probably be
Danny Dyer is actually really funny. But I think is Jason Statham like Jason Statham in real life?
No. What's interesting is Vin Diesel has this same like kind of gruff persona, right? But when you see him talk, he's actually almost like at the musical theatre end of performance. His voice is much higher in real life, and I think he's quite like he's sort of dancing and singing and stuff on set. It's not what you think at all. I don't think Stath is quite far to that extent, but when you see him, he's very smiley, very laughy, very like banter with whoever he's sitting with. I understand why he seems to have good on-screen chemistry with everyone, because I think the chemistry on set is probably really, really good. So I think he's quite a light person in real life. I think he's more like those guys he played back in the Guy Ritchie Lock, Stock, Snatch days. That's essentially who he is. He's just found this niche of playing these gruff, hard men with a heart.
Because he used to be, wasn't he one of those meat sellers in like a market where he used to call out like, well, it's like a giant caravan, or not caravan.
I think like literally like he's at the start of Lock, Stock, like selling like knocked off perfume and jewelry and stuff. I think
that's where Guy Ritchie sort of found him. It's just like selling stuff on a market, you know, yelling stuff out almost, because that's what you do when you're selling stuff. And it's like that kind of idea. I would so like to hang out with him because I just get really good vibes.
I think, has he on any panel shows? I think he would be enjoyable to watch on a panel show.
But he's American. They don't do panel shows really, do they?
He's American.
He's not American.
Sorry,
I was going to say, I don't.
He's got the most. You can tell he's not American because you've heard his shit accent in the Meg.
You can tell he's American because you literally know anything about him.
Wait, is his accent meant to be American?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize he was meant to be putting on an
I
accent.
just thought he was his normal voice.
I realized when I said I meant more so he's a Hollywood actor, and you don't get them on panel shows that much. And like he does so much stuff in America as well. I think he's unfortunately like almost he's kind of gone beyond that. Like anyone who's been in the Expendables, none of them have been on a panel show. Like
I wouldn't have thought so. No, I think also he doesn't seem to do much of that kind of stuff. He doesn't live a celebrity life. I don't really know that much about him. Not that I'm interested in that anyway, but you know, I know he's with Rosie Huntington-Whiteley. That's about it, really. I think he kind of lives that life separate from his acting. So that's quite. I think you know, I've spoken several times about who he aspires to be and who he looks up to. You know, it's from an earlier era of actors where really they were actors. Even if it was Steve McQueen, he was kind of the same in every role, but he was an actor. He wasn't, you know, a celebrity. It was Paul Newman. It was Clint Eastwood in the early days. It's these people who he aspires to be. So I think he has his professional life and his personal life. He doesn't seem to mix those two very much.
Nice. I think like Sir Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, like both of them, I think they're the kind of actors that you see them and they're like classically trained actors and they're really great. And you see them in films and they're really passionate about doing stuff, but there's not really any drama outside of that.
Hmm.
You don't really hear any gossip about them. You never really hear that they're nightmare on set. You just always hear everyone basically says they're really pleasant. Vast majority of interviews, they come across really nice. I know Statham had that one interview, he seemed a bit off, but aside from that, it seems to be you'd expect if he had the persona that he seems to have in these kind of films, there would be constant instances of people going like, "Oh, he's a bit of a prick." Like, like Edward Norton, for example, phenomenal actor, but a lot of people say he's a bit of a pain to work with. David Fincher, phenomenal director, but he makes you do the same take like 50 times, and it becomes a nightmare. And there's just people who are quite intense in certain ways. And I think, as you said quite a lot, Jack, on the pod, is like he's just so grateful. I know nowadays he's been in the game for quite a while, but I think even he's still. When you get someone, I think, who goes into celebrity limelight later in life, when they've already experienced what it's like to work a 9-to-5 job or hustle or whatever, then they become famous, as opposed to someone who's like a teenager or a young adult. It's very different. Like DiCaprio and Jason Statham, I know acting wise they're on completely different levels, but how I think a lot of us would perceive DiCaprio in real life to Jason Statham is very different. Yeah, and I wonder if that's part of it.
Cruise is the one I always come back to. I mean, the stunts, obviously, they both do as many as they can, but also still take the time to celebrate the team that they work with and the people who do the stunts and who do have to step in for them when it is deemed that they shouldn't do it. But also that sense of like, nobody has a bad word to say about their work ethic and what they do when they're on the set and who they are as a people in getting the film made. And, everyone can have their opinion on Cruise and that's fine. But who he is as a filmmaker is massively dedicated and massively respected. And it doesn't matter who you hear, Rebecca Ferguson on the Mission movies, or Renee Zellweger back in Jerry Maguire, or whatever what is it you want to pick, they all only have good things to say. And it does seem to be true of the Stath as well. A couple of the sound bites, I wrote them down from this documentary I watched, was something like, there's nothing fake about him. He's legit. What's really fun? Watching Jason Statham, and that was the director. And I think he was the only person they went to. It was like, we've got the Meg. It had been in development hell for about 15, 20 years.
Really? That long?
Yeah. Weirdly enough, it's based on a book, which I guess I didn't know until I was doing research for this. Like, you wouldn't have assumed.
No.
Disney had it initially, actually, funny enough.
Disney?
Yeah. Disney,
oh, my God.
They bought the rights initially. And then when it came to this version, it was the director John Turteltaub. He was like, "It's Jason Statham. Like, go and get him." It's like, that's who it is. He's the guy for this movie. So that does seem to be the vibe about him in Hollywood, in acting circles, in professional circles. Is he's great to work with, and he'll turn up every day. As we just said with that Expendables 3 anecdote, that's who he is, really.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I will say on Tom Cruise, yeah, I mean, I had my opinions on Tom Cruise and obviously Scientology, problematic, etc. But I remember Simon Pegg, obviously someone whose opinion I respect greatly in a lot of ways. And he said, a lot of people ask me about Tom Cruise, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. He's like, he's an absolute delight to work with. He is always on time. He always does more work than anyone else. And he said, and the big thing that really stuck with me personally is when Simon Pegg said, he will introduce himself to everyone. He'll shake everyone's hand. He'll look everyone in the eye. He will get to know your name. And if you're a random sound tech, if you're just an intern bringing you coffee, whatever, he'll know your name. He'll learn things about you. And you may not see him for years. And he will remember and make the effort to show that you're just both people and he kind of is on your level. And you're thinking, Tom Cruise is one of the most famous people on the planet. DiCaprio doesn't really do that. You don't hear necessarily negative things about DiCaprio's work ethic, but I think he turns up, does the work and goes. But Tom Cruise really does.
Go find that next 20-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. Tom Cruise is just like, he genuinely does get to know people, and he does actually. And if there wasn't this Scientology stuff and all the crazy stuff with Oprah and Katie Holmes or whatever, it was. If you get rid of that element, all you'd hear is pure positivity about Tom Cruise. And I think Stath is the same as you said.
I think the facts, and now we're doing a Tom Cruise podcast, which if I hadn't already watched all of his films with M, I would be tempted to do. But the fact he came back from that brink goes to show, like, he was, between Scientology and the sofa jumping, for most other people, they'd be done. They'd be out of the game. They'd been. But the fact he came back from that, and now he's making more money than ever. The films are more ambitious and more successful than ever in terms of the reviews. Everyone thought, why are you making sequels to Top Gun Maverick? And then everybody loved it. It's 5 stars everywhere and makes $1 billion. And yeah, the fact that he came back from that, I think, speaks to who he is, that he stayed professional and stayed committed to doing his craft the best that he could.
And Tom Cruise, again, I'm not the biggest Tom Cruise fan in the world, but I don't think he's in very many bad films at all. Like the amount of films he's in and the proportionate of how many are good and bad is actually quite high, which is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few.
Of what films I've even seen of his.
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds is
Mission
the main
Impossible.
one. I haven't seen Mission Impossible. I've not seen Top Gun.
I've not seen Top Gun, and I've only seen one or two of the Mission Impossible films, but I do. It's on my list eventually. I have seen quite. Tropic Thunder. That's one of the ones I love him in because he's just so weird and different in that. I think Tom Cruise is one of those ones where if we went onto his discography and started listing all the films, you go, oh, and that one. I mean, Collateral is one of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, for this podcast,
You did see that one.
Yeah. But yeah, I love any time about Jason Statham is brought up. I really, it makes me happy, and someone like him having success and him being grateful, I just love that.
Grateful is the right word, absolutely. All right, I'll read a couple of reviews and then I'm going to get your review.
Let's do it.
Okay, Tim Costa says, Jason Statham saves everyone multiple times. Jason Statham shows no fear in the face of a giant shark. Jason Statham stabs a giant shark. The dog's name is Pippin. 5 stars.
But I was going to say one thing we didn't mention. CGI, I thought really good. It's not the best, but for a giant shark film, it works really well. I think. I think that there's not really any parts that you go, oof, that's rough. I think for me, pretty sure I was like, yeah, believable enough in the silly realm it's in.
The dog might say that's rough.
Oh, very nice.
I mean,
am I right, everyone?
Again, why are we carrying on from that point? I mean, we're done. If I did trailers, that was it, Megan. I'm too lazy, if I'm honest, to do that and to do sound bites. But if I did, all right. Just Simon says, not competent enough to be good, nor schlocky enough to be entertaining. The Meg is a chore to watch. It's not a good film, nor an entertainingly bad one. It's just dreadful. And the fact that it has a PG-13 rating instead of an R rating alone prevents it from potentially going all out. So many poor character narrative choices that border on laughable. But the film isn't fun enough on its own to make one laugh. It's just boring and uneventful. The acting is piss poor. The filmmaking is insipid at best and horrid at worst.
Jesus.
I know. And the script is one of the worst of the year. Jason Statham occasionally tries to make it work by being Jason Statham. Even he, unfortunately, cannot do much. Not a fan.
I mean, the weird thing is about this film, which I found when I looked it up for this watch, was it's actually reviewed pretty badly, like everywhere. Rotten Tomatoes, I think, is like 50 or 60%.
Yeah, a bit less than that. I think less than 50. I think
IMDb it's 5.7, which is I've given it an 8. But like, it's so odd because this is one of those films where it made so much money. So many people have watched it, and everyone I know who's watched it went, "It's a giant shark from Jason Statham. It's amazing. Of course, it's amazing. What would you expect?" And I think what happened is, people who don't get almost the nuance of it and why it's so entertaining and silly is kind of like, it's almost watching Spy as a serious movie. You're like, I know Max says this quite a lot in when he guys review like Expendables and stuff, but it's like, what are you actually expecting from a film called The Meg with a giant shark with Jason Statham being Jason Statham in it? What do you expect this is going to be? Do you think it's going to be the next David Fincher film or the next Scorsese 3-hour-long epic?
It's very much what you expect from that kind of film.
Wait, get on the tin. That's what you want. What you want, a giant shark movie with Statham? This is the giant shark movie with Statham. And I think a lot of people, oh my god, this big film that's coming out, let's all go watch it. And then a lot of people didn't get it, like are reviewing it and kind of shitting on it on the internet. And it upset me how low rated it is, but it made loads of money. So they made a sequel, so it can't be that bad.
I don't think they cared ultimately. What does Simon know? What does Simon say that's right? Nothing. All right, Lou Shoemaker. At least 2 to 3 more cast members needed to get eaten by the big shark in this. My nominations would be the dad, either Ruby Rose or Paige Kennedy, which is the DJ character, and either Statham's old diving friend or his ex-wife. So everyone. The cast is packed to the gills. Oh yes, Megan. Pun intended. Seemingly for the purpose of a big bite being taken out of it, but then it doesn't really happen. Oh well. We get a consolation prize when the Meg goes absolutely nuts on a crowded beach, leading to a couple of pretty memorable kills. All I wanted the first time that I saw this was for Jason Statham to personally fight the shark, not just fire torpedoes or whatever at it. And, spoiler alert, he does. The Stathamness of the movie absolutely rocks. He plays a haunted deep-sea diver, an archetype I desperately want more of, but Li Bingbing stinks up her half of the movie. Plus, the two of them have no chemistry, making the scenes of them flirting deadly. One advantage to watching all of Statham's movies in order is that you can see trends in his career. And even though I'd like him to go back to doing smaller action films, I think his output from 2015 to present is way better and more fun than his films from 20 to 2014. Couldn't agree with you more, Lou.
Lou Shoemaker is, for any new listeners, Jack reads out his review on every podcast because oddly enough, he's done his own watch that's just on letterboxd reviews. He's just done his own Statham watch. He did it before Jack did the pod. So he's and I think, is this one of the first times he's overtly said, I've done a full Statham watch? Because I know it's normally hinted at because you're like, oh, when on the first episode, you're like, here's a review from Lou Shoemaker. Oh, and then the second episode, you're like, oh, this Lou Shoemaker guy. And then by the third or fourth, you're like, he must be doing a Statham watch because he's done every single Jason Statham film. And I think he's just said, he's admitted it. We've got it.
He's getting towards the end of his run, I think. So he's it's time to admit this is what he's been doing all the way along.
Yeah, I agree with what Lou said. For the most part, I think it's just a
little bit harsh on Li Bingbing. She's not the best actress in the movie, but she's not awful, I don't think. But
no.
We did say, the chemistry between them is fairly weak.
Just bland. I think she's a bit bland for me. I wish she was a bit more almost fiery, I guess the term I'd use, a bit more like, and she seems to be at the start and then she just kind of fizzles out really. And I think if she actually got a bit more, confrontational with Jonas Statham, if they got, I called him for his real name, the character's name, and I was like, I don't like this. I was like, I need to go back to Statham. I can't call him the character's name. But like, I think if she kind of had a bit more aggression, a bit more arguing with him or something, just a bit more to her, I think, towards the second half of the film. Because at first she's like, no, don't save me ever. And by halfway through the film, she's like, well, you've already saved me twice, and I've saved you, but some saved me again.
It's always difficult, I guess. I'm going to assume English is, well, it's definitely not her first language, but how proficient she is in English, it's much harder, isn't it, to be acting in. I was listening to a podcast the other day, actually, of people talking about how it was Don Cheadle actually talking about how hard it is when he feels when he's putting on an accent to still deliver the emotion he wants to do. So if you're doing that in a language which really isn't something you're proficient in or something you're experienced in, and it becomes doubly hard, doesn't it?
Well, you've said before, haven't you, Megan, on podcasts we've done, that if you speak to like your brother, for example, in Italian, even though
I don't,
you don't, because there's a weird, and I've heard other people talk about it, a language has like an emotional connection to it as well.
So Mike's trying to learn Italian and he wants me to speak to him in Italian. I find it really weird because our relationship is not established in Italian. I find it like, it's like talking to my dad in English. I find really, it is uncomfortable for me
because your
speak.
dad's Italian, your mum's English.
Yeah, like if we're in Italy, as you said, like with my brother, I won't speak to my brother in Italian because that's not the language in which our relationship is established. If we're in Italy and we're all talking around a dinner table, we'll all be speaking in Italian. But if I have to ask my brother something, I'll switch into English and speak to him in English.
Even at that dinner table.
Even at the dinner table, I don't speak to my brother in English, in Italian.
You don't do it with your mum, do you? Either? You don't
I don't speak to my mum in Italian. I find that weird. But that's also because when I lived in Italy, I would speak to dad in Italian. I'll speak to my mum in English. So that again is how the relationship was established. But I don't. Oh, right. So yeah, with your point, it is harder because sometimes when there are like polemic discussions taking place in Italian, I really struggle to get my point across because although speak Italian, I wouldn't classify myself as fluent in it. So when there's like a debate topic that arises, I find it really difficult to get my point across because I'm having to think about everything differently. And it's hard to portray what I'm feeling and thinking into the other language because that's the best way that I can describe it without, it's not.
And I've found when we've been watching like Drag Race UK versus the World, you get a lot of queens who aren't from the UK, and they're trying to make jokes in certain comedy challenges, and they often struggle quite a bit because trying to be funny in a different language is so difficult, because humor, much like horror in some ways, but humor is like so specific. It's about surprise, it's about delivery, and it's about little nuances and unexpected things.
Yeah.
So that I would be agree. I don't think she was terrible. I just think that the chemistry maybe wasn't there with the two of them, and I didn't think about the not being a native English speaker being a factor, but I think it could be.
Absolutely. I think, Megan, what you said there is really insightful, that sense of like the time it takes to like almost like translate it in your head, and then how would I say it in that language, and now I've got to try and deliver it in that language, and then like even when it's not comedy, timing's kind of lost, and if you're trying to create a sparky chemistry between two characters, that's on timing as well. So I think you're both right. All of that pulled together is probably why. And often I do find, wow, am I going to get myself cancelled here? I do often find, it's when it's languages that are so different where you do get these disjuncts, where you get this, where sometimes what we would use 2 words for, another language would use 7, or vice versa, where we would got 7 different bloody meanings of one word, and for them there's 7 different words for that, for those 7 different things. So I think often that's where problems occur as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think general language of just being able to communicate, like, can I have this? Yes, you can, is much more simple to understand. But yeah, as Megan said, when you get into more complicated things, like really relationships, humor, a lot of these things, it's all about the little details. You could write, if you write a script by a robot, you could easily say, we have a lot in common. Yes, we do. I like this. So do you. I have strong feelings for you. So do I. You could write that, but it won't make, as a human, you don't.
Why are you quoting lines from Han and Leia? What's going on?
I thought you were going to say from Padme and Anakin.
Oh yeah, that was the better one to be fair, because actually Han and Leia is much better writing. But I just wanted to get the Star Wars dig in there.
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of the Stath's filmography, is this a classic that everyone should watch? Is this worth catching, or really is it just for completists only? What do both of you think?
I've already made my decision.
I think it's worth people to watch it.
So you think middle? Because as classic as you definitely should. Worth catching is middle, and
I mean, if you're going to watch a typical Jason Statham movie, I think this is kind of the epitome of Jason Statham. No,
yeah,
like it's, if you're going to watch the most stereotypical version of Jason Statham, I would say that this is a fairly good shout. I just find it difficult with the word classic, because to me, if it's a classic,
you hate classics.
No, I hate cult classics. And that's not even just me being like, I'm cool, I'm edgy, I hate cult classics. Like, genuinely we'll watch something and then I'm like, is this classified as a cult classic? And Mike's like, yeah. And I'm like, that makes sense, because there's a trend and I don't like it. Yeah, classic to me, I find is like Mean Girls. It's a classic. Do you know what I mean? Like, I find, because it's so recent. But I would say that if that's the category, then classic, because you're
through the lens of the
it's Stath. Like a perfect example of what Jason Statham is.
It's only because I wanted alliteration. Because I want the classic, catching, and completest. I
never even noticed that was alliteration. The 3 C's. Wow,
that's all it is.
Wow. I mean, I agree. I think your phrasing of them it works really well, very effective. I think it's a classic as well.
I wasn't digging the phrasing.
Yeah, she was. She was slating you.
I wasn't slating.
She was writing a little note going, I can't believe Jack's done this. This is why I didn't come on Romeo and Juliet. I couldn't
He's an English teacher. System. What the fuck is he doing? He doesn't know anything about language.
So he put me off in collateral, and I forgot about it and agreed to another podcast, and then the rating system comes in. I think it's a classic. I think I basically slightly said it earlier, and I didn't want to ruin what I was going to say here, but I think that for me, if you got Snatch, Lock, Stock, Spy, The Meg, those for me are the quintessential Statham films. Now I think Transport would probably fit in that as well, but I haven't seen it, so I can't comment. But I think for the Crank, maybe I think Crank can really show an extreme end of it, but I think Crank is not.
Have you seen that?
We did watch Crank, and you despised it.
Oh, is that mental one?
Yeah,
yeah.
We did the afterthoughts on it. It was like 3 minutes long because we were.
I think you watched it. You said, Mike, in the same weekend or the same day. You watched Romeo and Juliet and Crank.
Yeah, we watched Romeo and Juliet, and then we finished it and watched Crank. And you and I said that should be the new Barbenheimer. It should be. It should be Cranky and Juliet. I came up with a snappy name for him. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, it's. I think for me, I'd say this Lock and Stock and Snatch, probably Transporter, and then Spy and The Meg. I think if you watch those films and you actively don't like any of them, you will not like any other Statham films. I think those showcase the kind of films he's in, a lot of Guy Ritchie, some actiony stuff, a little bit of comedy things, and this is really like full on action. I think you get the rainbow spectrum of what you can expect. It's like the ultimate portfolio, like the real quintessential for me. So I think this is a classic, and I think this is actually quite a good film if you've never seen any Stath films either, and especially if you quite like action films. If you got on board with this film and you were like, I dig this, you'd be like, good, go watch loads of other Statham films because you get like hints of this along the way.
It's like if you're thinking of like Lock, Stock and Snatch, they're different genres to this one, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
If I was going to choose one, I'd probably watch The Meg. I find
really
well, yeah, because and I don't know why this keeps happening in podcasts, and I hate using my surname as an adjective. I just find that Lock, Stock and Snatch are a bit too gritty for me personally. They're very British
social realism.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. But yeah,
because they're very dark. They've got a lot of dark undertones to them, and
I think I'd rather watch The Meg over them.
I think The Meg, I could watch it more in more
Even
situations,
just
in
not
more
to
moods.
have to listen to what's his name?
Oh, Brad Pitt's
Brad Pitt's accent. Can't understand what he's saying.
Yeah, I think that's the joke. But I think this film has more rewatchability.
But yeah, I think this is a classic.
Yeah, no, I agree. Classic. Would you agree, Jack? Have interest?
No, I would. I mean, I think often we have this discussion where like, what is the film? Well, the film is worth catching. But in terms of within his filmography, I think, this is the Stath. This is pure Stath. This is like oozing out of every pore.
Yeah, if it's like I gave this on IMDb like an 8 out of 10. I'd probably give it like 7.8, probably if I was being specific. But as a Statham film, like 9 out of 10, maybe even 10 out of 10, because I'm just like, you can't get better Statham than this. Apart, I think Spy is funnier, and I think the script is so good in Spy that it means that the Jason Statham in Spy is unmissable. But for purely just like undiluted Stath.
Yeah, if somebody said to you like, what is the film that shows you the Stath? This is right up there in terms of like
100%.
Yeah,
you've got this is it. This is what you would expect to see with his that persona and that kind of title that he's got now. Yeah,
I agree completely.
Cool, Brill. So it's that little promo time. Your favorite bit, Megan?
Yeah. Well, I have actually started posting to Instagram, so yay. So if you want to follow me on my weight loss journey on Slimming World, then go to Grits Gets Fit.
Get see some food you make as well.
See some food that I make. I am just using it to kind of keep myself ever so slightly more accountable.
Amazing stuff. And where else can they find you?
Patreon.
Yep.
Genuine Chit Chat, and in various other places. I just pop up everywhere.
Well, we did a pod with
I'm like a whack-a-mole. You can't keep me down.
As much as Mike tries.
Whack-a-mole.
Patriarch.
Yeah, I mean, Meg, we do Disney discussions with Rhea and Spider. Oh God,
you broke him
right at the very end. I'm sorry, friends. So we do Disney discussions with Rhea and Spider Dan. We do that every couple of months. We actually recently recorded a podcast with Spider Dan for District 9, which will be coming out in like June-ish, I think. So probably after this, actually. And Megan was also on the Vegas chat that I do with Chris, talking about Las Vegas because we're getting married in Vegas this year. So talking about that a lot. She's on my Patreon, patreon.com/genuine chit chat. I say mine, it's ours really, because the vast majority of content on there is Megan stuff. Over 200 episodes of Afterthoughts, and about 180 of them feature Megan. And we're talking about movies, things like this, but in shorter bursts in only like 10, 15 minutes or so. And we've also recently, it'll be on the main feed probably after this has come out now. So we've got a new show, M&M Monthly. So all the patrons would have got it a month early, and it's where myself and Megan talk for at least half an hour about a random topic. And people have been submitting topics to us. We've got hair as the first one, pantomime is going to be the second, and then we've got a few other ones. And if people want to comment, they can tell us the topics, and we will talk about it for at least half an hour. And patrons get it a month early and also get priority for their topics. So that's, I think, pretty much everything that we're doing. And also, I'm at Genuine Chit Chat on Instagram, Twitter, which is now X, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, everywhere. Genuine Chit Chat.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much again. Thank you everyone for listening and partaking in this journey with me through the Stath filmography. That was The Meg. Next up in a fortnight, Spider Dan and Angry Andy will appear on the show as my very own Hobbs and Shaw, followed by the return of the 20th century geek, Scott Weatherly, to discuss the Stath's first collaboration with Guy Ritchie for 16 years since the risible revolver in the, spoiler alert, wonderful Wrath of Man. for anyone that is watching along. I've been Jack's Musings, that's JACS, and you can find me on X where I'm most active. You can also contact the show directly on X or Instagram under the name Back to the Filmog. Make sure you use the hashtag #FollowTheFilmography. I'm also a proud member of the Comics in Motion family, a super place full of the world's greatest people, dedicated to bringing you podcasts on a variety of geeky topics. So, please make sure you take the time to search, subscribe, and rate our shows whenever and wherever you listen. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers.
Cut.
Well, that's going to do it for all of us here at Channel 4 News. You stay classy, San Diego. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Damn it! Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter? For the last time, anything you put on that prompter, Burgundy will read.